Elf I am the protagonist template. Invincible chapter 381 to 400. 381. Unpredictable, joint tactics. Multi-attribute evolution. Evil. Then Baizi's clear voice spread throughout the audience, and everyone's eyes flashed a ray of doubt subconsciously. ... Unique. ... Multi-attribute evolution. ... Evil. These words alone can barely understand what they mean, but when combined together, it will not make people a little confused. But next second, everyone can't help but widen their eyes, with a look that the worldview has been completely subverted. Only see. The puddle, which had been bottomed out at first sight, suddenly exploded, and a water elf with a blue body, a long tail like a mermaid and ears like fins suddenly swooped out of it. And it quickly glowed and transformed in midair. A lean body, with golden circle patterns all over its black fur, and red eyes that looked quite ferocious. Moon elf, evil attribute. The entire venue suddenly fell silent, and even Ah-Jin couldn't help but feel sluggish for a moment after seeing the change, and took a breath. And right now. Moon elf 25, curse. Jia Wu. In the crisp sound like the dislocation of the muscles and bones, the moon elf's muscles and bones roared in unison, and the muscles were knotted together. Curse, relying on hardened muscles to sacrifice speed in exchange for attack power and defense. Powerful skills. See through, fight for fire. Jia. The moon elf twisted its body and crawled on the ground, looking back with scarlet eyes. The shrunk right foot suddenly bounced out like a spring, and at the moment when the roulette turned sharply, with an incomparably accurate angle, kicked in the side corner of Dunjia's roulette. Sip, underscore. In the dull sound of physical collision, Dunjia, who was in the combination skill, spin, was kicked out of the rolling state, and the whole looked like a high-speed baseball fired by a batter, bursting into the air. Gas, the direct attack of the armor shot out, and hit the alloy wall on the edge of the arena. Ka tilde. The moon elf retracted its slightly bent left foot, twisted it on the ground, and only heard a click, and the misplaced left leg was forcibly corrected by it. The whole process is flawless. Seeing this, Baizi's eyes flashed away. Don't look at Ibrahimovic, a guy who looks for various methods all day long to seek the opportunity to stick with Zoroark, but it survived the cruel experiment. Its tenacity, the level is far better than that of ordinary spirits. Even the fighting elves, known for their stoic and toughness, are rarely comparable to it in this regard. Woo, buoy. The moon elf's torso stretched slightly, and in an instant, it regressed from the moon elf form and returned to the original Ibrahimovic form. A layer of obscure halo rises from under his feet. This is a trick of prayer, and he can recover nearly half of his injuries in the next round. In the observation room, Dr. Damu was the first to react, standing up almost straight. How is this possible? The change that made him unable to calm down was exactly the change of Ibrahimovic. Well known as an evolutionary Pokemon, Ibrahimovic possesses the most elf species in the world that can cause genetic changes to evolve. So far, the evolution methods have been completely confirmed and discovered, and there are already 7 types of fire elves, water elves, thunder elves, leaf elves, ice elves, sun elves and moon elves. But no matter how many evolutionary forms there are, it is only evolution. But this Ibrahimovic in front of him. Not only did he evolve into a water elf at will, but he could also directly transform from a water elf to a moon elf with completely different attributes, and then degenerated into Ibrahimovic again. And it can be seen that this Ibrahimovic is very familiar, no matter evolution, degeneration or morphological transformation, obviously he is used to it. But that's totally unreasonable. What reason? What is the reason behind the scene? Dr. Ogi's whole face was about to stick to the floor-to-ceiling windows in the observation room, and his fiery gaze was fixed on the Ibrahimovic on the field. As a researcher, the desire to explore is burning. I'm going to. What's the situation? Does Ibrahimovic still have such ability? I don't know either. Is it possible that Ibrahimovic has any undiscovered characteristics or exclusive tricks? It's possible, what Baizi said just now. Multi-attribute evolution, evil. That's right. It's very likely that this is the fundamental reason why Ibrahimovic can transform in these forms. By the way, since this Ibrahimovic has the water elf and moon elf forms, are the other forms also? Confusion and loud noises and emotions were constantly coming from all over the venue. And there is a question about Ibrahimovic's form. In the field. Akin obviously thought of it too. When he is excited, he likes to play with the elf pool cue that never leaves his hand, and he waved it between his shoulders and arms twice. In his eyes, he was full of interest. This Ibrahimovic, apart from the water and evil it shows, what about other forms? Have you mastered it? Guess. Baizi shrugged and smiled. I guess. That's. Ajin pretended to think, but the next second, he suddenly shouted, rock block. Oh tilde. The dull sound of a drink sounded, and a large shadow suddenly fell on the sky, and in the roar of the wind, the large canopy of conical stones had appeared in the sky at some point. The overwhelming rain fell 297 times. Playing a little trick again. Baizi chuckled lightly and snapped his fingers. Pop 1. Electric. Move at high speed. Wow tilde. Ibrahimovic flexed his feet slightly, and in the next second, a thunder elf covered with yellow and white spikes burst out under the attachment of a layer of white light in the sudden white light. Do not retreat but advance. Z was drawn on the ground, and in an instant, it was already one step closer to the armor on the edge of the field before the rock blockade landed. Fire. The familiar white light flashed again. The sharp golden form quickly receded in the light, and turned into an orange-red figure with a soft body. Oh tilde. In the soft whisper like a greeting, between the soft and dense temples, the deep red and burning white hot flame turned into a beast head in the shape of a fire elf. In an instant, it engulfed Dungia. Overheating. This. It is unique to Ibrahimovic. Joint tactics. 382. Like a storm, Ajin is defeated. Boom, underscore. The raging flame beast head rushed in front of Dungia in an instant, and the lingering heat scorched its eyes and face. Such a distance is obviously unavoidable. Hold on. Guarding the ultimate move can be regarded as a major defensive skill in the elf world. As long as the level difference is not too large, it can completely resist the opponent's attack. Of course, continuous use or some special conditions will reduce the success rate of skill use. Oh tilde. Dungia growled and bowed down. In an instant, a bright green energy shield rose from the body of the armor, resisting the flames of the overheating skill at the critical moment. But, in the face of this, Ibrahimovic in the form of the fire elf did not mean to stop at all. Under the agitation of energy, flames spewed out, and continued to burn the armor wrapped in the guarding skills. What is this doing? Ball, that gradually formed in the field. Ajin's expression was a little puzzled. Under the same level, the protection of defending skills is quite strong, even if the power is as high as 130. The fire-type ultimate moves are overheated, and it is difficult to cause any damage to dun armor in such a situation. Not to mention, the reaction of overheating itself will reduce its own special attack, and the consumption of continuous use is much higher than that of defending skills, which is obviously unfavorable in terms of results. Then why? Ajin's brain turned frantically. He didn't believe that Baizi would do useless work, especially in terms of his previous performance in dealing with his respective strategies. He couldn't help but be cautious. Baizi's eyes narrowed slightly, looking at each other indifferently. Time goes by. Gradually, Dun Armor, who was wrapped in flames and guarded the shield, felt difficulty breathing. It couldn't help but take a deep breath. But unfortunately, it still can't stop the suffocation that gradually rises. Not good tilde. Ajin suddenly glared, he thought. The real purpose of the fire elves, regardless of energy level consumption and reaction force, is to use superheat and continue to burn with all their strength. is to artificially create the anaerobic zone makes Dungia unable to get the supply of oxygen. If you continue. Dungia, use the scroll to break out. Oh. The trainer's voice shook Dungia's somewhat confused spirit, and he undid the hold he was trying to support. When the flames hit, he would curl up and roll. But the next second. Oh. Click underscore. The pain was accompanied by the slight dislocation of the muscles and bones, and the long nose of the armor, which is an important external roller, was bent and suddenly broke. This is the damage caused by the Moon Elf's tit-for-tat attack. Damn. The game was already laid out so early. Looking at Dungia, which was submerged by the raging flames, Agent finally lost his calm, but he still gave a plan to break the game at the first time. Dungia, be patient. Live. Use quake. Oh. Burning, hypoxia, bone fracture. Dungia, who was infected by the severe pain, blushed and closed his eyes to avoid being burned by the flame. He slowly raised his feet and stepped on it with a determined will. Down go. Bang one by one. Centered on the body and feet, the ground splits in a ring, rising or sinking, the entire venue suddenly seems to be overturned, and the ground is shaken in an instant. Woo! The power of this move was indeed strong enough, and the fire spirit was forced to interrupt the continuous burning of the overheating skill, and had to jump up to avoid the direct damage of the earthquake trick. And in the moment it jumped up. It's over, it's over. Whispering softly, as if making a final declaration, Baizi waved and ordered. See through. Stab, underscore. In the thundering light, the fire elf turned around in midair, and Ibrahimovich's eyes suddenly changed into the form of a thunder elf, with a dim light flashing in his eyes, a surprise attack like a lightning bolt. To the side of Dungia, who just finished the earthquake trick. It slid sideways to the lower abdomen of Dungia, and kicked it into the air with 4 feet. Afterwards, it turned into an electric light again, and turned into a moon elf form halfway through. The red eyes were filled with fierce malice, and the hooks and claws of the muscles and knotted arms were instantly clasped and a little dizzy. Hugh Dungia's nose. Gia tilde. With forceful arms, with a malicious smile, he twisted his body, swayed his waist, waved his arms, and threw it in the direction of the river. To vent his anger. When you vent your anger, your ability will be reduced, and the power of your moves will be multiplied. Puff one by one. Dungia was directly smashed into the broken river channel hundreds of meters away without any resistance. And the next second. Stab, underscore. With the familiar white light suddenly rising, Ibrahimovich, who once again transformed into a thunder elf, caught up with him across a distance of 100 meters. Yeah. Following the leisurely chanting of the thunder elf, endless thunderclouds quickly converged on the sky. Between lightning and thunder. Click underscore. A huge thunder column with 4 or 5 people hugged down from the sky in an instant, blasting into half of the river in the blink of an eye, rendering the turbid water surface golden. ... Skill, thunder. Slave after lightning strike. Golem underscore. For a moment, Dun armor, covered in scorch marks, slowly floated to the surface, his eyes turned white, and he had apparently passed out of a coma. Using the properties of water to conduct electricity to give the ground-type armor the damage of the electric-type trick. To Nuo Jiao perhaps, there is also damage to the internal organs of the body through drowning. Ajin, who put Dungia into the Pokeball, recalled the details of the battle for the first time, and it was not difficult to guess the effect of the skill. What really made him sigh without sigh was Baizi's tactical use like a storm. Even if a little mistake was caught, what greeted him was an extremely meticulous combo. Routines will not give people the slightest chance to breathe. Only, to be, death, by battering. This is really, it's like walking on thin ice. Fierce play. 383. 8th Destiny, are you deceiving ghosts? And the other side. At the moment when Dungia fell, a familiar and pleasant system prompt sounded in Baizi's ears. You commanded Ibrahimovich to defeat Agents Dungia, battle experience +50, strength +4, Ibrahimovich level +1, multi-attribute evolution proficiency +5. Ding! Defeat the Son of Destiny and get an additional reward, the power of hatching one time. This should be the 8th destiny reward, right? And, the power of hatching. Baizi's expression was indifferent, and there was a trace of thought in his eyes. Speak up. The additional rewards obtained from these 8 destiny rewards can be said to be quite in line with the characteristics of their respective original owners. The redness of being a combatant brought him an illusionary beast, Marshadow, that reached the realm of the gods. This was an increase in combat power. As the protagonist of the anime, Ash brought him the lucky time of 24 novels, which is the harvest brought by relying on luck. And next. As the successor of the power of Vibrant, Xiaohuang brought him opportunity hidden in the vibrant forest. Of the cultivated person brings him a multiplier growth BU 297 FF. The little blue of the evolutionary person gave him the evolutionary power that can stimulate autonomous megization. Xiao Mao, who broke his fate, gave him an opportunity to touch future combat power. Even the scumbags of people's scorn. It also left him with a completely unreasonable fortune to achieve his goals. Now, Hatcher, in the original book, gave him the destiny reward, which happened to be related to the ability of incubation. Incubating power, one time, it can make the hatched elves inherit the trainer's will and emotion, and obtain unimaginable innate power. To be frank, even if it was expected, when he really learned the exact ability of this ability from the system interface, he couldn't help but raise a passionate emotion in his heart. Picture book owner, in the special chapter, the ability of the incubator is the most impressive to him. After all, it is possible to hatch a Pichu that can be compared to or even surpass the peak of the first-level gods with electric power at birth. However, thinking that he was still playing at this time, Baizi quickly restrained his thoughts. At the same time, I light as Lan. The look inexplicably swept over Ibrahimovic, who seemed to be panting a little on the field, and felt as if it was difficult to continue. Immediately, Ibrahimovic, Champion Elementary, level 79, 2100s, in excellent condition. At this moment, Baizi, who almost understood what Ibrahimovic wanted to do, secretly rolled his eyes and gave up his initial plan to replace the elves. He looked at the second elf released by Akin on the opposite side. The main body is yellow, the abdomen is white, and the whole looks a bit like an upright herbivorous dinosaur. There are black ring patterns on the neck, tail and ears, and the top of the head and the end of the tail. Each tip has a red ball. This is an electric dragon with pure electric properties. And strong strength. Open black lens bracket race. Electric dragon close black lens bracket. Attribute: electricity. Feature: static electricity. Level: Heavenly King Peak, level 69, 99 100ths. Potential: King of Heaven. Opening square bracket ellipsis closing square bracket. Status: perfect. Introduction: an electric dragon that can break through the championship level at any time, has a very delicate and fast electric attribute operation ability. From the data panel alone, this guy is likely to be more difficult than Dunjia. But that's just for Ibrahimovic before. With the help of the unreasonable feedback ability, CFED, of God's reward, today's Ibrahimovic has already broken through the shackles of the peak of the king without making a sound, and set foot in the championship field. One step away is like the next day. Come on, use the electromagnetic gun. The moment the electric dragon appeared, Ajin took the lead in launching a rush attack. Because in his opinion, the best way to avoid falling into the interlocking rhythm of Baizi is to choose a strong attack and not give the opponent a chance to play tactics. And his electric dragon was originally a special attacker trained as a fort. Its delicate and fast electrical operation ability can completely turn it into a cruise turret, completely suppressing the opponent within the firepower range. Oh Feng tilde. In the soft and cute chirping sound, several spiral electromagnetic cannons with a diameter of 5 meters suddenly fired, either straight or curved in midair, turning into different trajectories, blasting towards Ibrahimovic from all directions. Hit away. Boom 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 boom. The successive explosions and roars reverberated through the fields, and lightning flashed from time to time in the mushroom cloud, and the smoke and dust filled the air, completely drowning the entire half of the court where Ibrahimovic was, and gradually spread in the direction of the half of the electric dragon. Oh Feng tilde. Without the king's instructions, the electric dragon, who has rich experience in long-range strike warfare, immediately opened his flat arms. Waving room. A fine grid with only an inch of clearance was constructed, with the river as the dividing line, and a layer of defense was laid to divide the entire arena. The smoke screen gradually dissipated, just as Dianlong was concentrating on preparing for the second cannon fire to wash the ground. Whoosh _. A short burst of air suddenly sounded. The nearly dissipated dust and smoke suddenly opened a gap from the center, and the star-shaped light spot that flew out almost folded in space and rushed to the front of the electric dragon, hitting the electric dragon heavily. Long cotton on the soft abdomen. A dent visible to the naked eye. The huge impact force it carried directly pushed the body of the electric dragon, blasting it hundreds of meters, and it was embedded in the alloy wall on the edge of the arena. High-speed stars, instant kill. Your Ibrahimovic killed Agent's electric dragon in seconds, gained a little, experience value +5, high-speed star proficiency +1. A long time. Jinkai looked at the opposite side of the arena with a face full of surprise, on the messy ground full of large and small potholes, on the body of Ibrahimovic with a delicate face, but his hair was as clean as new. Champion class. Delicate. Dude, are you a liar? 384. Difficult blasting tactics, have to come up with trump cards. Agent almost laughed at Ibrahimovic. Playing tricks and tricks has always been his specialty, but now, he has been deceived by an Ibrahimovic whose acting skills are obviously not good enough. Moreover, even if you are acting, can you use your heart? It looks like it will fall when the wind blows, and after being washed by the artillery, after the dust and smoke swept up, there is no dust on the body. Are you using the electromagnetic gun for bathing? Wipe. 1-1. Akin rolled his eyes. Thinking that he was sent a cruise gunner in seconds by such a guy, his chest was suddenly blocked, so he couldn't take his breath away. However, he would not have read it wrong before, that Ibrahimovic was indeed still some distance away from the championship level at the beginning, and the level was at most similar to his Dunjia. So, a breakthrough. Call. Deeply pondering in his heart, Ajin slightly closed his eyes and let out a long sigh of relief, and then suddenly opened his eyes. The fighting spirit in his eyes diminished in the slightest. I have to admit that regardless of tactics or pre-reading ability, I was faintly crushed by you, and you really are super strong. But Ajin shoved the brim of his hat fiercely, and then pulled down the goggles at the moment. This war, my comrades and I will never take a step back. Come on, Firestorm. As soon as the voice fell, the elf ball in his hand was gently thrown up, and the next second, the elf pool cue in his hand suddenly hit the center of the palm of his raised left arm. The Pokeball flies like a shooting star, traversing half the court in the blink of an eye. Firebeast stomped on its feet out of thin air, which was saved from the blasted Pokeball ray. Boom, _. A loud explosion like an explosion resounded from the bottom of the Firestorm Beast's feet, and the strong blasting impact pushed the Firestorm Beast's body, as if stepping on two rocket propellers, killing it in an instant. Ibrahimovic's approach. Flame Fist. The raging flames ignited from the fists and claws of the Firestorm Beast, and smashed towards the top of Ibrahimovic's head from top to bottom. Tail of the Water. This blow came too fast and too hastily. Even if Baizi's order was issued in time, Ibrahimovic only had enough time to put the fluffy long tail wrapped in the water up in front of him. Sip, _. Just a stalemate for a moment. Sip. The water and fire counteracted, and at the moment when the steam just came out, There was a sudden explosion on the claws of the firestorm beast, and the bursting energy directly knocked Ibrahimovic out. The firestorm beast, which was also propelled by the reaction force, accelerated to the ground with the help of the swallow return technique, and stepped on both feet. Boom! The explosive flames exploded from the soles of their feet again, and the firestorm beast stepped on the flames, chasing after the victory, fists and arms like bows, and bombarded again towards Ibrahimovic, who was still flying upside down in the air. Tide whirl. Vizi looked calm, and ordered in a cold voice. Since the close-up physical attack skills failed to block, what about the energy curtain gathered by the special attack skills? Ibrahimovic, who was flying upside down in the air, snorted, and in the next second, the turbulent water flow spurted out, turning into a spiral water ball that wrapped Ibrahimovic's body. The firestorm beast's fist did not hesitate at all, hitting directly on the rotating water curtain. Boom. Sizzle. The dull collision was followed by a burst of sound, and a large amount of water vapor rose up, and the firestorm beast, which was violently charged by the reaction, suddenly took a big mouthful of inhalation. The chest and abdomen suddenly swelled. A layer of red light floated up from its abdomen, chest, and throat. Twisting the air, scorching colorless smoke rises. Then, the fiery flames shining the color of magma blasted down like a tidal wave, completely covering nearly 2/3 of the arena including Ibrahimovic. Next second, the red-yellow flames that spewed out flashed back and forth, and a series of explosions resounded throughout the venue. Exclusive skill, fire breathing. Call, Vizi's eyes narrowed slightly as he faced the turbulent hot wind. At this level, it was obvious that he could not arouse the stress response of the safety device. But it also shows the degree of energy restraint of Firestorm Beast's exclusive skill, fire breathing, from the side. The power of the exclusive trick of the champion elves with all their strength. Vizi doesn't think that the Vulcan moth will be weaker than Xiao Huang. The reason why it shows a decidedly different external performance, it's all because the two sides have different directions in the use of fire elements. Ask for flowers. One of the most essential manifestations of fire is, of course, burning. And burn. It is the combined form of light and heat. This can be seen from the duty on the wind speed dog. The duty is burning, and it controls light and heat. These two interpretations of flames are also the promotion paths chosen by the vast majority of elves who study the changes in the attributes of fire-related skills. However, there are always exceptions. For example, Xiao Huang's Vulcan moth, although it is also committed to improving the heat of flames, it also walks out of its own way of flame. Compression. That is, compressing the flame into a liquid state, gives it a water-like aggregation and mass that is difficult to extinguish. And Akin's fire beast. Inflammable and explosive, flame characteristics possessed by its race itself, and continues to strengthen and deepen it, forming a tactical system that can be attacked and supplemented, and is easy to use at a distance. Vizi will temporarily call it the blasting tactics. To be frank, this tactic is tough enough. Because of this strategy composed of its unique explosive flame as the core, whether it is on the close combat side or the distant combat side, the opponent has almost no shortcomings. Close-up, displacement, coverage, sex and even damage are impeccable. For today's plan. Or, he thought of a tactical idea that was enough to crack the blasting tactics. Or, only to be able to break it. Vizi's eyes flickered, watching the field turn over and fall back to the half of the dead wood left in the opposite half, puffing out his cheeks again, brewing up the second fire-breathing fire beast, and finally his expression was certain. It seems that this whole card has to be turned over. Begging. 385. Fairy's Edge. All or nothing, the quarter-finals are over. At this moment, Ah Jin suddenly shouted as if he felt something in his heart. Come on, Baizi. There must be something you haven't brought out yet, right? Don't hide it. Just on this battlefield, have a showdown with me with all your strength. You guy. Baizi was stunned for a moment, pulled his collar, and his blue eyes suddenly shone brightly. Then, as you wish. Multi-attribute evolution. Immortal. Along with Baizi's soft drink, a melodious murmur suddenly resounded through the venue. Am I? That voice was so soft and tactful, as if a lover was whispering in his ear, and it was like the smile of a fairy in a flower, which made people subconsciously fascinated and indulged in it. A dazzling light emerged from the smoke. Next second, the invisible energy surging inside blows the shrouded dust and smoke outward. In the fading light, Ibrahimovich's new form was revealed at this time. Delicate and feminine, with a slender torso dominated by pure white, the top of the head, the outside of the ears and the ends of the 4 feet are pink. The inner test of the ear is blue, which complements the sapphire-like pure pupils of 297 inches. A pink and white 2-color bow is hung at the connection of the left ear and in front of the neck. The bow is internally measured, and each has 2 ribbons extending. The colors of the ends are pink, dark blue, and light blue. One by one, this is the 8th evolutionary form of Ibrahimovich that has not been discovered so far: Fairy Elf, Fairy Attribute, Blinking Pokemon. And the decorative bows and ribbons are actually the tentacles of the Fairy Elf. The swaying bow can confuse enemies and let them down, while the ribbon on the head can send a calming wave to end the fight. Is this a new evolution of Eevee? So beautiful. Yeah, it's simply a beautiful incarnation, like a fairy. What do you think it will be called? I am not sure, but the naming rights should fall to Baizi, right? Maybe we'll know after the game. Unlike the vast majority of viewers who focus on the cute appearance of fairies. Ajin, who was keenly aware of the sharp aura emanating from the fairy elf's body, froze. Sharp. Could it be? Is the evolution form of Ibrahimovich this time a steel type? Ajin pondered in his heart. And on the field. Whoa! The firestorm beast, which was charged up, opened its mouth and spit out, brushing the time, and the yellow and red fire cloud that expanded like a bubble surged out. Like a tidal wave, it rushed in the direction of Ibrahimovich in the form of a fairy spirit. A cloud of flames shone with dazzling red and yellow flashes. Face this. The corner of Baizi's mouth, who was pulling on the collar, raised a slight smile, and drank coldly. Quote. Fairy wind. Mew tilde. Ibrahimovich and Fairy Elf form immediately moved when he heard the sound. The tentacles at the head and neck converged in front of him, and the surrounding air began to emit light blue light. Faintly, there seems to be an invisible aura unfolding here. A sword-shaped mark flashed between his eyebrows. Above its body, a huge and illusory lone wolf phantom appeared faintly, screaming at the moon. In an instant, as the tentacles of the fairies and elves suddenly unfolded, a strong pink wind mixed with a faint blue frontal shadow roared out and went straight towards the raging fire cloud. Boom! The pink strong wind and the turbulent fire cloud exploded upon touching, and the sound of the explosion kept coming, and the entire arena was instantly divided into 2 distinct parts. The pink wind pressure and the constantly surging blasting flames are caught in a tit-for-tat tug of war. Ack! A red light flashed in the eyes of the firestorm beast, and the flames on the shoulders and backs burst like a volcanic eruption. As a fire-type royal family whose temper is not too good, the firestorm beast's nature is impulsive and irritable. And whenever it gets angry, the fire element in its body will burn more violently like a chemical reaction, producing more violent explosion flames. Therefore, as the trainers of firestorm beasts, most of them will not deliberately tame and obliterate their temperament. But Baizi sees it clearly. Ajin's fiery beast had obviously fallen into rage in an instant, but the red eyes flickered. It was clearly a calm and rational light. The flames are raging. For a while, it seemed that Ibrahimovich's fairy wind was gradually suppressed, and it gradually pressed towards the half where Ibrahimovich was on the left. But also at this time, whoosh whoosh, The fine sound of breaking wind suddenly came out one after another. In the surging explosion flame, it seems that many foreign objects poured into it in an instant. What? This thought just rose from the firestorm beast's mind. Next second. Puff 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 puff. Countless blue and white lustrous sharp-edged thin blades pierced through the heavy flames in an instant, with a little smoke burned by the flames, and stabbed the firestorm beast in a single glance. Blood splattered. AK__. The firestorm beast, who was screaming in agony, only had time to put his arms in front of his eyes, blocking the key points of his eyes, and his entire body was immediately bruised by the dense thin blades. But it's not over yet. The subsequent powerless explosion flames were completely crushed, and the strong pink wind pressure with strong propulsion suddenly hit, pressing the firestorm beast to the point of breathlessness. At the same time, the air blade hidden in the wind pressure is like a continuous storm that madly washes the fire beast, constantly repelling and penetrating it. To lose. A look of unwillingness flashed in the firestorm beast's eyes, and it seemed that it had no resistance to continue to curl up under the continuous impact of the wind and the blade. Cover up. The fire of rage that was squeezed out continuously accumulated in its abdominal cavity. Fire beast. A hint of unbearableness flashed in Ah Jin's eyes, but as a comrade in arms, he still took cover for the firestorm beast who wanted to carry out his will. Firestorm beast, hold on. What? The voice was shrill and there was obvious panic. Ellipsis. It's really at the end of the road, and there's nothing I can do. This guy is really good acting. On the opposite side, an inexplicable flashed in Bai Zi's eyes. If he hadn't known in advance that the firestorm beast was still hiding the trump card that poured out the energy from its body in one breath, causing a shock like a nuclear explosion, he might have believed it. So, are you ready to go all out and try to turn things around? With a flash of eyes, Bai Zi immediately used telepathy to connect to the fairy elf on the field. Ibrahimovic, be careful. And it was not long before Bai Zi was promoted. The firestorm beast suddenly burst out in a low voice, and the raging flames poured into the fists from the whole body and smashed to the ground. Sip. The entire arena was shaken suddenly, and the ground contacted by the fists suddenly broke and extended. The raging ground fire was like a prairie. In an instant, the strong wind tore a crack, slammed up, and smashed the ground. The fairy elf who seemed to have been unable to dodge was completely engulfed. Boom, __. Like a volcanic eruption, the shock that was set off soared into the sky, and it was wrapped in flames and dust and gathered into a small mushroom cloud. The entire venue shook again. On the energy shield raised by the safety device, layers of ripples continued to emerge. This outrageous counterattack made the audience silent for a while. Until the smoke screen clears. Was blasted out of the edge of a huge semicircular pothole. Boy tilde. With a sip, the slightly embarrassed Ibrahimovic drilled out of the bulging small soil slope, groaned softly, and began to shake off the soil from his body like no one else was there. And on the opposite side of it, the firestorm beast, which still maintained its fists and claws on the ground, collapsed suddenly. You mean that Ibrahimovic defeated Ajin's firestorm beast with a 4.3 wave, and you have gained a little battle experience plus 50, Ibrahimovic experience value plus 20, water tail skill plus 3, tide whirl skill plus 3, fairy wind proficiency plus 3. You have created a brand new heritable skill, and the skill will be independently upgraded to the profound level. Please name it. Oh, Bai Zi raised his eyebrows slightly. Just call it Fairy Edge. The blade hidden in the fairy storm. Namely, Fairy's Edge. The other side. Are you a substitute? Ajin was stunned for a moment, then reacted immediately, scratching his head in distress, and smiled calmly at Bai Zi. Bai Zi advanced to the quarterfinals. I lost. P.S. 3,000 chapters. The quarterfinals are finished in one breath, and the next is the competition for the quarterfinals. Do you have any specific battle combinations that you would like to see? 386. Bai Shui name scene, Fairy please order. Tuozi, that Ibrahimovic, I am afraid that he has been purified by high-level attribute energy. In the stands, looking at Ibrahimovic in the form of a fairy elf with love in his eyes, a deep and sweet voice suddenly sounded in the ears of the bright girl with eyes full of love. Lord Reshiram. The girl was stunned for a moment, then she opened her eyes slightly and looked again at the cute elf who was shaking the dust off her body before saying, You mean? Yes, that young Zhou Shen is entangled in too many legends, and I dare not rush into it. But what is certain is that behind him, there must be at least one, a high-ranking, or even a top-level legend. And that Ibrahimovic. Reshiram's unique voice faded. It should be the same as your King Yanwu. On the other hand, after the referee announced the result of the game, Baizi put away Ibrahimovic, responded a little to the audience who cheered and applauded him, and got up and stepped into the corridor. However, approaching the corner, Baizi, who sensed something, paused slightly, but in the next second, he walked steadily forward along the previous route with his sword eyebrows raised. Just when the foot 25 steps just bought the corner. Next second. Alas! Accompanied by an exclamation, a young and rich girl in overalls and ponytails slammed into Baizi's chest head-on. Then, as if unable to bear the force, he was about to fall to the side. Be careful. Baizi immediately stretched out his hand, grabbed the slender waist that Yingying was holding, and pulled it into his arms. It's a little hard to the touch. Pokeball. With this thought in mind, the expression on Baizi's face was well managed, and at the same time he asked softly, This lady, are you all right? No, it's all right. Nuo's voice sounded, and the rich girl touched Baizi's sleeve without a trace, and then immediately broke away from Baizi's arms. I'm so sorry I bumped into you. Seemingly shy, the girl never raised her head. After bowing her apology, she shrank her head and walked around in a big circle with the appearance of a socialist, and was about to leave in a hurry. Wait. Baizi turned around with a half-smile on his face. Ma'am, you seem to have dropped something. The girl subconsciously touched her pocket. Subsequently, slowly turning around, he looked at the flickering two-color feather pin in the hand of the silver-haired handsome boy. Long time. The girl stretched out her body and asked in a completely opposite tone from before, How did you find out? Baizi pretended to think, ignoring the girl's sharp gaze, and while resetting the feather cuff, he said slowly, Perhaps it is, practice makes perfect. You really guessed who I am. The girl rolled her eyes, and after seeing Baizi's, What are you talking about? In return, her sweet and pleasant appearance melted away. It turned into a pool of purple-pink jelly, and detached from the girl's body. Long brown hair, a good figure, wearing a felt hat, wearing a black corset dress. This girl who revealed her true face from the ever-changing disguise is the old man of Baizi. An acquaintance, a treasurer. It's Xiaolan who has the title of Evolutionary Man. Tell me, what tricks do you want to play this time? Shaking the feather pin on his wrist, Baizi asked with a chuckle. After pondering for a moment, Xiaolan knew that it was impossible to retrieve Shuangyu from Baizi's hands, and finally had to sigh and grab Baizi's wrist. Let's go to your rest room again. But the two just walked out of the corridor. Head on. Then he saw Yayi and Tuzi who were holding hands and standing pretty side by side not far away. Baizi. What is this? Is the white scientific name seen reappearing? Outside world. As the two players in the final battle of the quarterfinals, Baizi and Ajin quickly made it to the hot search. This can be called the most intense battle of the Silver Mountain Alliance Conference, and its reenactment video has attracted countless trainers and passers-by spectators. Before the game, due to the famous combat commentator and Yulongdu's likes and endorsements, Ajin's Fire Beast has been confirmed to be a champion. Although I don't think Baizi will lose. But what most people think, Baizi wants to deal with Akin's championship-level Fire Beast. Why should he take out the Philomelody from the opening match? But who knows, with just one Ibrahimovic, Baizi completed the push. Of course. This Ibrahimovic is also extraordinary visible to the naked eye. It can freely transform among the 5 attributes of general, fire, water, electricity, evil, and an unknown attribute. It can be said that the attention it has attracted is not inferior to that of Dacto and Feromero before and after the opening game. And most people focus on it. Then it gradually shifted to the attributes and naming of this new evolutionary form of Ibrahimovic. I think it should be of the steel attribute. You have also seen that trick, Fairy Wind, that kind of attack is as sharp as a blade, and it is no different from 1,000 knives. It must be of the steel type. Sexual. That's reasonable, but if you say that, isn't this elf likely to be named a steel elf? Or a sword elf? Ah, this .297. Does the upstairs feel the same as me? These names and the cute appearance of the new form are full of contradictions. Yes, and since Fairy Wind is used, is it possible that it is a fairy type? Also, before Ibrahimovic's transformation, Baizi shouted, multi-attribute evolution, fairy, then, the new form is called. Wouldn't it be more appropriate to be a fairy? If you don't tell me, it's really possible that I forgot the fairy attributes. It needs to be explained here. Although the division, classification, and restraint relationship of fairy attributes have only been gradually improved in recent years, they are included in the Elves illustrated books and courses. But the fairy attributes themselves have been determined many years ago. There is absolutely no such thing as in the novel. It has been ignored for hundreds of years, and needs to be discovered and excavated by the protagonist. To know. The eldest Alliance Gym Master in the Kalal region, Pope Lee, is a trainer who is proficient in goblin attributes, and has been in power for 70 years. 387. Prologue of the Big Event, Xiaohuang vs. Alice. In a separate lounge. The atmosphere is subtle. Baizi was lying in the middle of the large U-shaped sofa, Tuzi and Yai were sitting on the right side, and Shaolin on the left was sitting next to him. The distance was close enough to make Baizi smell the nice shampoo scent on the hair. Several people looked different. Yai lowered her head, and Tuzi, who was beside her, glared angrily. With that look, she couldn't wait to scratch 2 holes in Baizi's body. It's the little blue girl. I have always been watching the fun and don't think it's a big deal, a ghost and a ghost. I just took a little secret loss in Baizi's hands. Seeing that the atmosphere was not right, I actually bent my calf and shrunk to the sofa. Then he leaned over his head and leaned close to Baizi's neck with a pair of ears and temples, and exhaled. Baizi, that little girl with a ball head has something to do with you, isn't it? You say, does this count? Shira Field. As soon as the words came out. Baizi didn't react yet, but Xiaolan's own heart was sour for no reason. I am. She was shocked when she sensed the emotions in her heart, and was about to calm down. The next second, a big hand like a tiger's grip, pressed it directly on Xiaolan's pretty face and pushed it out. Go away, don't make trouble. This is Xiaolan, a true Xinjiang native. He's and I met while traveling and stayed at my house temporarily. Her friend. Baizi didn't try to explain anything. After all, it can't be said that you are all my good sisters, right? Therefore. He just gave a brief introduction, then changed the topic directly and led to the business. Tell me, Xiaolan, what's the situation? Xiaolan blinked and glanced at the 2 women not far away. Let's just say, basically, it's all my own. Baizi meant something, fixed his eyes on Tuzi for a while, then turned his head and looked at Xiaolan's clear eyes under the slightly twisted willow eyebrows. I basically know everything about you, so. He raised his hand and shook the double feather cuff on the sleeve of his wrist. His eyes were deep. He started to move. Mei and Tuko were at a loss. But Xiaolan's pupils shrank suddenly. You really? How on earth did you know these things, Tilda? Although she had already anticipated it, when she heard it from Baizi, she was still a little shocked and couldn't help herself. How do you know? This involves some of my secrets, so I can't tell you. Bai Zi shook his head and said bluntly. A lie often needs countless lies to make up. He was too lazy to do such a thankless thing, and he never thought of telling the truth. After all, this involves his most secret time travel secrets. However, looking at your appearance, he has indeed begun to act. Bai Zi smiled. Even today, even if he may face the strongest trainer in Pokemon, his expression is still calm enough, without any respect or fear. But to be honest, Bai Zi can fully understand what the lonely old man did. Because, if it were him, I'm afraid he would have made the same choice. Perhaps, it will be more decisive, maybe. But in the end, whether this world is right or wrong, it's just a different position. With his thoughts surging, Bai Zi quickly restrained his distractions, put his fingers together, and said solemnly, I will intervene in this matter after the game is over. Yes. Xiaolan suddenly straightened her waist, and was about to say something, but was stopped by Bai Zi reaching out. Based on the intelligence network he has, I think, at this time, my information is probably already on the other side's desktop. Understood, I've already entered the game. Even if you take things away, he will come to me to confirm it. With his strength, even if you don't come in person, you can't possibly be his opponent. So, it's better to put it here with me, it's safer. Xiaolan clenched her fists, her teeth clenched, and there was no blood on her lips. She was in a state of confusion at the moment. Annoyed. The same way, the feeling of dependence she had never had before made her both intoxicated and a little overwhelmed. It was like walking in a dark cave all day long, seeing the light suddenly, yearning for it, but subconsciously did not dare to approach. Mei and Tuzi looked at each other, although it was still a bit cloudy, but it was not difficult to hear that Bai Zi seemed to be involved in a not simple matter for some reason. Under Tuzi's gaze, Yayi was about to speak. But right now. Squeak, _. First of all, let me explain that this uncle didn't deliberately eavesdrop. As the door opened wide, the turquoise expression was leaning against the door frame, and the palm still maintained the posture of pushing the door. However, as compensation, let me intervene in this matter. Qinglu spread her hands, and in her words, it didn't seem like she was asking at all, but she had already made a statement on her own. What do you think, Kai? As he said that, he turned his head back and looked at the tall and straight figure in the shadow of the corridor. After the game, I will come. Qihong ignored Qinglu's meaning, and looked directly over him, looking at Bai Zi, and left the sentence succinctly. Turn around and leave. Shout tilde. Let's go. See you on the field. Qinglu looked a little unhappy at the back of the disappearing red, waved his hand at Bai Zi, and left simply. These guys. For a long time, the corner of Bai Zi's mouth couldn't help tickling upwards. At the same time. City capital. In an underground base covered with icebergs, on a throne-like frost bench, a tall figure shrouded under a cloak held a stack of documents. After careful reading, I finally settled on an enlarged picture of the sleeve needle. Gam, Carter, immediately go to the Silver Mountains to investigate. After putting down the information, a sharp voice like grinding ice cubes rang out. Remember, don't act rashly, wait for my life order. Yes. X2. Next, the men and women in the uniforms of the Silver Club and the Rockets bowed to take orders. The next day, the Silver Venue. Then, Nuo Jiao Ben, it's the semifinals of this Silver Mountain Alliance Conference, 8-4, the first match for the semifinals. After a brief opening speech by narrator Caesar. Bai Zi, Xiaohuang, Crimson, Qinglu, Alice, Tuzi, Crystal, D and C, the final makeup photos of the top 8 players who qualified were arranged in sequence on the electronic split screens on both sides of the venue. And then, with dazzling splash screen draws, the first group of contestants suddenly appeared on the big screen of the venue that was divided into 2 halves. Open black lens bracket Xiaohuang Dai Jobin Lilac vs Alice Close black lens bracket. A.W.0.0 Chuan. The weak-colored girl, who was full of enthusiasm and vitality, was suddenly shocked with a look on her face. Slave. 388. If the team will complete the 8 masters of the championship, please order all. Little Yellow. Alice suddenly looked at her girlfriend beside her with a tearful expression. Half of her expression was really a little surprised to meet Xiao Huang so quickly, while the other half was actually thinking in a funny way to relieve Xiao Huang of the tension and hesitation that may exist. As a dragon training expert who inherits the arrogance, strength and temperament of dragons, Alice is not the kind of character who hesitates just because the opponent is a friend. Rather than say, it is precisely because her opponent is Xiao Huang that her blood boils even more. After all, she knows Xiao Huang's strength well, and as a qualified trainer, there is nothing better than fighting each other. The way to understand and deepen the relationship. Alice understood that. However, when she turned her head, what she saw was Xiao Huang staring at Bai Zi's fixed makeup photo on the split screen, relieved. In an instant, Alice's cheeks bulged. Next second. Small, yellow, sauce. Gritting his teeth and flying, he pressed Xiao Huang's pretty face all of a sudden, and kneaded desperately, it's like this, it's like this. Are you relieved to see that the opponent is not Bai Zi? Does it matter if 297 is me? House receipt, I'm speechless. The two frolic for a while. Alice stood up first, her expression restrained, her shining pupils stared directly at the pure white girl in front of her, her small round face with 2 tiger teeth exposed, and a dragon-like ferocity rose up. Xiao Huang, I hope to see the strongest of you in the arena. If you show mercy, it will be an insult to me and my dragon legion. Let's have a showdown with all our strength. Saying that, Alice didn't care about Xiao Huang's reaction. She took the initiative to pull her opponent's palm and punch herself, and then simply stepped out of the door. Her lounge is on the other side. The game is about to start, and it is time for her to make her final preparations. After all, the opponent is Xiao Huang. She can't tolerate the slightest negligence. Inside the room. Listening to the sound of footsteps gradually receding, Xiao Huang clenched the back of his fist, and a smile appeared on his face. Well, go all out. Ladies, CFED, and gentlemen, the audience on the field and in front of the TV screen, what's going on next is the first game to advance to the semifinals. The two sides of the battle are Alice from the Land of Dragons in the Hejiang area, and the one with the most rookie trainers in this competition, who is also the youngest, from Guan, the little yellow contestant of Junxin Town in the East region. The impassioned voice of the commentator Caesar reverberated above the arena. Accompanied by the two people walked out of the corridor. Wow! There was a tidal wave of cheers from the audience. It is worth mentioning that the Dragon Land, where Alice is located, is one of the 2 great dragon-type fairy paradises, along with the Dragon Cave of the Yulong's house in the capital. And the true new town of that year also once had the reputation of the Town of Champions. Then, in today's game, who is the trainer who has come out of the same outstanding people, who can win the first promotion of these 8 into 4? Let's wait and see. This kind of scene interpretation with regions, legends and opposites makes the atmosphere of the scene instantly mobilized. The cheers of tens of thousands of people instantly gathered into a huge wave, as if to overturn the roof and break through the stratus clouds above the 9 heavens. Hometown of Champions. On the platform dedicated to the contestants, Xiaoji looked at Bai Zi with a puzzled face. Brother Bai Zi, do we still have such a title in Junxin Town? Not bad. Bai Zi nodded with a chuckle and explained, to get such a title is entirely due to the efforts of the previous trainers in Junxin Town. Since the first World Pokémon League competition was officially held, Dr. Damu took the lead and successfully won the championship. The next 9 consecutive competitions will be completely the personal show of Junxin Town. Because, starting from Dr. Damu, all the champions in the World League Championships until the 9th edition are all from Junxin Town. When Xiaoji heard this, including the trainers who were sitting nearby, they were all dumbfounded. No one would have imagined that in most people's eyes, this remote town, which was known to most people only through the light of Dr. Damu, would actually hide such a glorious story. But then why is there almost no spread? Xiaoji asked the doubts that the crowd raised. Maybe, it's too long ago. Baizi smiled and didn't say it clearly. What else could be the reason? There are a total of 9 games, and only 9 World League competitions have been held, which is completely surrounded by a small place in a backcountry. What does this make other regions, or even other contemporaries in the same region, think? This way, there is no turbulence, just like inheriting the general personal show competition, it will naturally be eliminated, gradually, and in the competition that was crushed for a whole 9 times, as a loser, here they still deliberately promoting it. Just like the popular world-class competition, the Pokemon World Championship, if the top-level 8 masters are all wrapped up in the same place. Do you see if the Kalo Alliance branch and the Malakoman group as the organizers will continue to hold it? But then again, if we can really form a group to fill the seats of the strongest 8 masters in the Pokemon World Championships initiated by the Kalo region, that would be really interesting. Thought here. For a while, Baizi started to move a little. Ice field, gradually rising in the arena, Baizi's attention was again attracted by the elves released by both sides of the competition. Xiao Huang's pioneer is still the previous, first-generation Insect King candidate, the Vulcan Moth. And Alice, her opponent. Come on, 3 evil dragons. P.S. Seriously, Alice's beautiful picture is still very beautiful. 389, successor to the strongest Viking power. Roar tilde. Accompanied by the ferocious dragon Roar, a black-blue dragon beast with 3 heads, messy hair and purple lines suspended in the air. The vicious dragon breath immediately swept the audience. Championship. No, it's still close, but it's very close. Many powerful trainers quickly noticed it, and roughly estimated the level of the 3-headed dragon based on the intensity of its aura. But it was no surprise. Again and again, again and again. What unknown elves, low-level legends, polymorphic Ibrahimovic, and rookie champions have all seen more than one, a quasi-god that is close to champions. To be honest, for the audience and guests who have been almost numb to the shock, they are actually getting used to it. Tilde. As for Baizi, at the moment when the 3 evil dragons appeared, he glanced habitually. Get the data panel of the other party directly one by one. Race, 3 evil dragons. Race, evil dragon. Feature, floating. Level, Heavenly King Peak, level 69, 99 100ths. Status, perfect. Introduction, it has a ferocious personality and has 3 heads. It is the best multi-caliber mobile fort. After special training, it can attack at the same time. Oh, can we attack at the same time? Baizi rubbed his chin twice, pondering in his heart. Speak up. In this competition, many trainers, handheld elves exceeded the general racial restrictions, and even went their own way in some aspects. Although it may be a little immature compared to Shabo's old guys who have been tempered over the years. But without exception, their own tactics and direction of progress have gradually taken shape. The world of gold. Involuntarily, Baizi uttered a sigh that was indistinguishable from that of Dr. Damu before. Different generations, the protagonists and rivals of each version are in the same era. It is indeed like a fantasy in the novel, the golden world of Tianzhou burst out. But that's what makes it more interesting, isn't it? And this moment. On the field. The game starts. Following the referee's order, Alice took the lead in launching a strong attack, giving the order succinctly. Alice did her best as soon as she made her move. Several months. The two of them get along day and night, and there are few secrets between them. Come up with some unexpected tactics. Still. Hide a hand. None of this is realistic. 3 evil dragons, provocative, harsh, Yingfeng. Only, in a pure head-to-head competition, the most fundamental elves, namely combat power, and their respective labor command and response capabilities. And with Alice's order, roar! The three evil dragons raised their heads to the sky and hissed. The deputy head on the left radiated a bright red light, and made a provocative expression at the Vulcan moth. The deputy head on the right made a harsh scream. And above the soaring main head, countless energy boulders are arranged like a forest of swords. It rained suddenly. The provocation trick forces Vulcan moth to only release direct attack skills that deal damage to the opponent. The sound waves produced by the shrill sound weaken the defenses of the Vulcan moth. In addition, the rock-based long-range attack, Rock Block, which has 4x damage to Vulcan moth, can be trapped and slowed down. This set comes down. It is completely to weaken the Vulcan moth first while forcing the Vulcan moth to face it. However, there is no way to avoid it, so be prepared to damage yourself 800 and the enemy 1000. Close black lens bracket. Vulcan moth. Xiao Huang's expression was cold, and vaguely, it seemed to merge with a tall and straight figure with silver hair. Voodoo tilde. The Vulcan moth froze, instantly grasping the meaning of Xiao Huang. It made a long hiss, and swayed a circle of flame vortex between its wings. The scorching fire cover directly slammed into the flame vortex in front of it. It turned into a huge spinning fireball and slammed into the direction of the three evil dragons. Along the way, from time to time, energy rocks fell, which were offset by flames, or fell on the ice surface of the venue, but in the end, Vulcan moth broke through many obstacles and came to the front of the three evil dragons. Ask for flowers. Just at this moment, a gentle wave like a spring breeze rose from Xiao Huang's body, whose brows were slightly lowered, and at the same time, the fierce dragon-like aura suddenly erupted on Alice's body. Overheating. Reverse scale. The Vulcan moth, whose breath was rising, suddenly appeared from the bursting fireball, and the six wings swayed, and a scorching torrent suddenly surged out. At the same time, the three-headed dragons, which were surrounded by a circle of crimson flames, were not to be outdone. With the increase of the semi-formed potential, they broke free from the frenzied trouble of the power of the scales. The three dragons were angry, one large, two small, and three dragons. The waves are entangled and entangled, facing the hot torrent. Dragon Wave X3. Boom. As if the sky and the earth were colliding, the dazzling energy explosion plunged the entire arena into a vast emptiness. Only the violent roar and shaking could tell the strength of the blow. The strongest successor to the power of victory, worthy of the name. Bai Zi, who had already put on a pair of sunglasses on the bridge of his nose, whispered to the piano. Naturally, the white light of the energy explosion could not block his sight. He had an unobstructed view of the situation on the field. It is for this reason why he sighed like this. Although Alice's potential has not yet been fully formed, her ability to increase the elves is still quite objective. In addition, the three evil dragons today are slightly stronger than Vulcan moth in terms of pure combat power. Dragon Wave of the three evil dragons is not only enhanced by the reverse scale, but also released in the form of three combos. Under the superposition of such layers of buffs. Slightly behind in the overheating battle with Vulcan moth, Xiao Huang's power of vibrant, the strength of the increase in combat power, is evident. However, if it's more ruthless, Xiao Huang is still a little immature. Begging. 390. Alice's will officially stepped into the realm of monster. On the field, as Bai Zi's words fell. Horse. The sharp and painful insect chirping suddenly resounded along with the roaring and wanton strong wind pressure, and the scorching wind swept wildly. Quantitative layer. Ice on the ground below is visibly melted, vaporized, and evaporated, telling the super high temperature of this scorching wind pressure. But everyone's attention is not on this. Over the venue. The two elves who were originally facing Bo were already entangled at some point. The body of the three evil dragons was covered with scorching marks, and the flesh and blood in many places were even scorched and rolled up. Full of bubbles, bloody and charred flesh intertwined on the body, it is chilling. But even so, the three evil dragons did not show any signs of pain. 297. The three dragon mouths shone with lightning, fire, and pitch-black luster, biting the joints on both sides of Vulcan Moth's torso and neck respectively. Thunder teeth. Flaming fang. Bite. And in the mouth of the main head that was bitten by the display, the black smoke gradually dissipated, and the condensed rock elements were almost visible to the naked eye. This trick is Sharp Stone Attack. Vulcan Moth. Accompanied by Xiao Huang's sudden exclamation. Boom. The condensed sharp energy rocks were gathered directly from the mouths of the three evil dragons, and just like this, they hit the bottom of the Vulcan Moth and exploded. Wow! There was a burst of exclamation almost subconsciously in the auditorium. Such a zero-distance explosion in the mouth, although the damage to the Vulcan Moth was doubled, but itself, especially in the oral cavity department, and will inevitably suffer a considerable degree of injury. This is completely to kill the enemy by 1,000, and lose 900 by changing his life. Why? Xiao Huang was like the first time he met the wheat-skinned girl across from him. Uncontrollable panic and hesitation rose from the bottom of his heart, and a look of retreat flashed in his eyes. Xiao Huang's talent is undeniable. But compared to the monsters of the same period, her psychological quality is still far behind. No matter Bai Zi, Crimson, Qinglu, or Alice who is currently fighting against her, or even Xiaomao and Xiaoji, without exception, they all have the will to fight to the end. Xiao Huang may also have such potential. But she didn't experience the experiences and adventures like in the original book, and she only set foot on the road of trainer by relying on Bai Zi's longing, cheese-tempered. It can only be up to you. Xiao Huang. Bai Zi's eyes were deep. And this moment. In the face of Xiao Huang's wandering eyes, Alice's eyes also wavered for a moment, but soon, she became firm again. Xiao Huang, don't look at me like that, Long. I will never allow myself to lose in a failure without trying my best. For them. Similarly, for me, the so-called best effort. It's a fight. Along with Alice's declaration as if she were carrying out her will, an invisible breath that carried out her beliefs, her will, and her heart surged out. An illusory image like a tyrannosaurus flashed away from behind Alice. The shriveled vertical pupils, the fierce expression, and the two small tiger teeth exposed at the corners of her mouth made Alice look a little like a normal human at the moment. But young dragons with claws and claws. Potential was finally conceived, and Alice, who fully manifested it, officially opened the door above that genius. Really, set foot in the realm of monsters. And inside the door. Bai Zi, the tyrannical dragon, it's interesting. Chuckles. JPG. Crimson. War Intent. JPG. Qinglu. Dragon. It's just a Chongfen that must be crawling under Wang Wei. Dr. Damu. Monsters appear frequently. Drinking tea. JPG. Sharona. Again, but I'm used to it. But, it's very similar to me tilde. Kona. This, potential. Ha, I should have called Du to watch this game. Open black lens bracket Jiao. JPG close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket Sage. JPG close black lens bracket. I don't know, what will he look like? Remarkable. JPG. Look back. The Vulcan Moth, who was attacked by a sharp stone at zero distance, was instantly bloody, and the red tentacles on both sides were affected, resulting in large and small cracks. And the three evil dragons are not much better. Black smoke overflowed from the corners of the mouth, blood was flowing, and at the corners of the blind eyes, there was a bloodstain running through the forehead from the blasted gravel. But even so hurt. Different from the anger and struggle of Vulcan Moth, the three-headed dragon's hideous expression contained a kind of high fighting spirit and joy. As if It is immersed and enjoyed in this brutal fight. Sharp stone tilde attack. In Xiao Huang's sudden change of expression, Alice's eyes were determined, and her breath was hooked, sharing, and she, who felt the pain of the three evil dragons, roared in a pale hoarse voice. Vulcan moth. In Xiao Huang's exclamation, the Vulcan moth, whose nerves were stinged by the pain, suddenly stopped. At this moment, it seems to have deeply felt the deep and sincere pain of its own trainer, and it is the pain that it feels for itself. But Vulcan moth also felt the obsession that was deeply hidden under this pain and did not want to leave the stage. I want to stand on a stage where I can really look at Brother by Z. Open black lens bracket. I understand, little master. Close black lens bracket. Horse. Quote. The mournful insect chirping reappears. This time, what it contains is not pain and struggle, but willingness to burn the embers and burn one's own will. Three evil dragons 4.3 that condense the rock attribute factor suddenly raised a smirk. Those who do not know how to resist, who have no struggle, are just prey. Now. Just a little bit like an opponent. At this moment, Vulcan moth and the three evil dragons looked at each other together. And the next second, such as the flame clouds that cover the sky, and the rock spear that shines sharply and decisively, suddenly collided. P.S. Ask, which version of Serena do you like? 391. The outcome is already divided. The first prayer. Boom. In the roaring sound, the billowing smoke burst, and the entire arena was drowned by the dust flames generated by the collision of this strong energy. Suddenly, a bright red fire rushed from the left to the right, and bombarded the safety shield not far in front of Alice. Such a situation. It seems. In this matchup, Vulcan moth has the upper hand. Acrobatics. However, Alice, who saw this scene, murmured as if to herself, and then showed a triumphant smile, General. And with Alice's words should just fall. Horse. The Vulcan moth let out a painful whimper again, and the scorching hot wind pressure instantly blew the thick smoke away, and the sunworm, who was sitting in the last struggle, did not know when the three evil dragons had circled behind him. The three pairs of wings are noose in a pair of deputy heads. Falling from the sky. The flames flew in all directions. Woo tilde. And the three evil dragons resisted the waves of flames that were constantly washing their bodies. Among them, the head attached to the energy rock blade 25 was raised high, with a cruel grin, aiming at the fire god moth. The direction of the back of the head hit hard. Physical direct attack skills, rock attributes, double-edged hammer. Boom. The powerful head hammer brought down the torso of the Vulcan moth with the momentum of diving, and slammed heavily on the alloy chassis with only a shallow layer of water curtain left. The violent explosion was accompanied by the energy ripples generated by the skill conflict, forming shock ripples overflowing in the air. After blowing the smoke away, the wind pressure driven by the remaining waves lifted the water curtain within a radius of several hundred meters again. The superalloy card, which is tough enough to be comparable to the exoskeleton of Boss Cordola, was smashed into a giant pothole with a radius of nearly 5 or 6 meters. Its impact. Even more, the little water left on the ground was completely dispersed to the edge of the arena, and the aftermath did not diminish, and it gradually returned after half a sound. Roar tilde. The three evil dragons struggled to get up, and in the pits and grooves under them, there were Vulcan moths with dim eyes and dim eyes. It has completely lost consciousness. Obviously. This battle is a winner. Quote. Huo, Vulcan moth has lost the ability to fight, please replace Xiao Huang with the elves. Caesar, the referee, swallowed and announced. Be good tilde is the little girl now so fierce. But Xiao Huang, who was awakened by the verdict, hurriedly took the Vulcan moth back into the Pokeball. Subsequently, in the presence of tens of thousands of spectators, he released the heavily injured Vulcan moth again, kneeling on the podium, with his hands stretched forward. Vulcan moth, I'll cure you right away. The words fell, as if there was an invisible surge of energy, brushing the tips of Xiao Huang's hair. At the same time, a warm breath like the spring breeze overflowed. The green brilliance of yin-yang spewed out, completely wrapping the body of the Vulcan moth in it. All of a sudden, the originally dying Vulcan moth's breath suddenly filled up at a speed visible to the naked eye, the shattered tentacles and broken wings regenerated, and the wound was quickly healed. Voodoo. The long insects chirped, and the Vulcan moth, which flew out from the shattered brilliance, shook with 6 wings, igniting the flames. The Vulcan moth, which has fully recovered and a new look, appeared in front of everyone. The place was silent. Similarly, this process has also spread to thousands of households through live broadcasts. What is this ability? That Vulcan moth was on the verge of death, right? That little girl was able to heal it completely in such a short time. This. I don't understand it, but I was shocked. Is this a superpower? I don't know, but what I want to know is, can this ability heal dark wounds and disabilities? Can it work on humans? If it's really possible, even if it's only any of them. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark. Let's not talk about the reaction of the outside world. Venue. Is it exposed after all? Bai Zi looked at Xiao Huang who was crying with joy and hugged Vulcan moth, his eyes pondered. Although the vast majority of people may not understand what this ability is, it is almost foreseeable that tomorrow, or even soon, Xiao Huang's basic consultation will be placed in on the desks of major families, forces and even the top leaders of the alliance. But he believed that after this game, no one should come to fight Xiao Huang's idea. In addition to Xiao Huang's own fighting strength that is comparable to that of a general champion, she, who belongs to Junxin Town, is also considered to be under the protection of Dr. Damu. Not to mention, there is also Alice, the equally powerful best friend of Dragon Town, and the trio of Junxin Town who will surely shock the world. Even if the League itself wants to do something, it must be carefully weighed, and the consequences of angering multiple top champions. It's great that you're okay, Huoshinmo, and, I'm sorry. At this time, Xiao Huang, who had calmed down a little, let go of Vulcan Moth's body, recalling his performance in the previous battle, and a huge sense of guilt suddenly appeared in his heart. As the trainer of Vulcan Moth, it is clear that Vulcan Moth is fighting for herself, but she has the heart to waver or even retreat in the middle. He did not fulfill his duty as a trainer, at the very least, to walk side by side with the elves. Voodoo. Vulcan Moth seemed to sense Xiao Huang's intentions, and lightly touched Xiao Huang's shoulder with his wings, as if he was comforting 297. Don't worry about it, but Xiao Huang, why did you become a trainer? Close black lens bracket. Xiao Huang was stunned for a moment. If it was before, then, although she is not very clear, she can give various answers that may be messy and simple, but the starting point is almost the same. In order to catch up with brother Bai Zi. In order to become an excellent trainer who can go forward side by side with Shirasawa-san. In order not to waste the talent that brother Bai Zi said. For many. But those. It's all just the motivation for the girl to move forward for the longing in her heart. When does it begin? She even ignored herself a little bit, and even ignored her willingness to follow her and hand over everything to her elves. Xiao Huang's body trembled a little. In the end. What is it? The one she had inadvertently ignored, her original and purest, the wish. 392. Xiao Huang's awakening, the Behemoth War. Open black lens bracket. I want to be friends with all the elves. Close black lens bracket. Become a friend. Xiao Huang's expression was in a trance for a moment, and in her heart, countless fragments and the voices of elves suddenly emerged. I like Xiao Huang, I hope it can be happy forever. I must become one of the strongest in the group, and then return to my hometown. But before that, I must help Xiao Huang realize his dream. It seems to evolve quickly, and then, high flying. Well, with Xiao Huang. At the end of my life, I should repay this kindness. Please be firm in your heart, little master, no matter what kind of prayer it is, I will do my best. I hope you can also face up to your heart and go on without any confusion. Everyone. Xiao Huang's mouth twitched, but he still managed to hold back no tears, and his heart was filled with warmth. She suddenly realized that she had so much. At the same time, he also remembered that he had asked Baizi a similar question back then. Brother Baizi, what do you think is a true friendship with the elves? Friendship. Memory, the young man smiled, and there was no hesitation in his gentle response. Perhaps, while the elves carry your expectations and move forward, they can also respond to the elves' expectations. Is it the friendship between the trainer and the elves? That's a bond. Memories fade away. Contestant Xiao Huang, please change to the second match as soon as possible. Hey, I said don't talk nonsense. I can feel it, Xiao Huang, I'm about to wake up. The sound of the referee being interrupted in her ears, and Alice's familiar and energetic tone, made her look certain. Come back, Vulcan Moth Tilda. He looked at the relieved Vulcan Moth and smiled. After taking it back, Xiao Huang, who took out a pokeball, first nodded apologetically to the referee. Only then did he turn his head and cast his eyes on Alice on the opposite side. That eyes, clear, translucent. It seems to reflect Xiao Huang's pure heart, and the last trace of confusion has disappeared like dust, and there is no more imitation. I already understand. Thank you, everyone, and Brother Baizi. I want to establish a real friendship with the elves, to be able to carry each other, to move forward together. A real bond. Vaguely, behind Xiao Huang, there seemed to be a variety of shapes. Different phantom shadows surrounded her. Then, staring at Alice on the opposite side with a firm expression he had never seen before, the next second, Xiao Huang threw the overweight ball in his hand towards the court. Let's go together. The goal is to become the strongest steel snake in the world. Roar. Accompanied by a dull growl, the replaced forest site suddenly shook violently, as if a hill fell down, causing the sky to be filled with smoke and dust. When the smoke cleared, a behemoth nearly 50 meters long appeared in the field. The whole body is as distinct as golden iron, the whole body is gray and blue, the scarlet eyes are arranged on the broad head like a triangle, the odd-numbered segments are on both sides of the long thorns, and the end of the tail is shaped like a huge iron nail. Sure enough, there will be this big guy. With a smile, Alice took back the 3 evil dragons that were not shallow, and replaced a new pokeball from her pocket. This is one of the advantages of being the first winner. You can temporarily not change the sprite and wait for the opponent to release the sprite before making a choice. And the pokeball in her hand. The color is gray and white, and blue semicircular protrusions are arranged on the gray surface. This is also an overweight ball. White light blooms. Roar. With the same dull roar and vibration, the smoke screen raised and dissipated again. And what appeared in front of everyone was a steel monster more than 4 meters tall and wrapped in hard armor. The silver-white steel helmet on the head is similar to a mixture of a triceratops and a bull's head. The torso is covered with black armor, the neck, back and joints are also silver-white, and the legs are thick and sturdy black. Nagao, at a glance, knows that the power is amazing. This steel behemoth is exactly Boscodora. A kind of fierce and powerful elf who dares to snatch territory with the quasi-god Bangira, which is rare in the wild. It is said that in the depths of the Silver Mountains, these two groups often start wars between giant beast groups because of the high-quality mineral resources in the central area. Oh. Baizi on the stand raised his eyebrows, and meaningfully swept across the two behemoths facing each other on the field, the battle of the giant beasts. Immediately, Race, big steel snake. Attribute, steel ground. Characteristic, hard head. Level, Heavenly King Advanced, level 67, 85 100ths. Potential, Champion. HP, 140, 75, Attack, 85, defense, 200, special attack, 55, special defense, 65, speed, 30. Open black lens bracket. Common skills, slightly. Close black lens bracket. Genetic skill, wide area defense. Status, perfect. Introduction. Swallowing the excellent geocentric ore veins in the Mihal Mountains for many years, I was able to grow in size and strength far beyond that of the same family. Constantly relying on eating high-concentration ground-type ores to continue its life, its vitality can grow in a mutant way. Race, Boss Cordola, Overlord form. Attribute, Steel, Rock. Characteristic, Heavy Metal, Monty, Luo Jiao. Level, Heavenly King Advanced, Level 68, 2100ths. Open black lens bracket, 1. Introduction. The son of the Overlord who ran away from home in the heart of the Victory Forest, with natural power and amazing resistance. And this moment. In the field. Then, the game begins. The referee Caesar, who was speechless in his heart, immediately controlled the self-exploding Magneto to retract into the safety device after issuing the order. He didn't want to be involved in the war of giant beasts that anyone with a discerning eye knew was extremely dangerous just because he ran slowly. Slave. 393. Let's wait and see. Please complete the order. Boom boom boom. 1. The entire venue shook. Collision. Collision. Still colliding. From the very beginning, these two giant beasts started the most primitive fight and collision, with no dodging and no strategy. The size and weight of both sides determined from the very beginning that this would be a battle of force and force. Matchup. The whole venue was also full of joy, and every collision between the two sides would arouse cheers all over the sky. The cheers of tens of thousands of people were like a tidal wave. Even Baizi and a few people above the stand couldn't help but surging with blood, not to mention the two giant beasts and trainers in the arena who were fighting. In the cheers provoked by another collision. Roared Tilda. Boss Cordola, who was knocked back a few steps, had red eyes and stepped forward abruptly with a roar, facing the straight drill tail of the big rock snake on the opposite side like a drill. Prick. The moment of approach. Stab, underscore. His body sank slightly, and he let the electric drill grind the piercing tail thorn of the shoulder armor, stepped forward, and hugged the front section of the tail pin. Then. Roar. In the dull roar, Bosco Dora's whole body steel armor cracked like a 297 whistle surging with white air for his debut, and his arms that suddenly swelled in a circle suddenly exerted force. It actually shook the big steel snake that was 10 times longer than it in an instant. Round your arms. Twist. A hard fall on the other side of the field. Brute force. Boom, underscore. The already overwhelmed venue was instantly torn apart, and the roar was accompanied by smoke and dust, and was about to turn around again, intending to give the big steel snake a full Hulk-style massage wave. Skadora suddenly felt the giant tail in her arms slip suddenly. Followed. Use tie up. The giant tail is like a snake that does not retreat but advances, and turns around in an instant, fixing the Boscodora ring within the long tail. Immediately after, is the striking lock squeeze. In nature, the binding strength of snakes is quite amazing. In general, as long as the size difference is not too great, few prey can escape the strangulation of snakes, which is called death coil. Although most of the body of the big steel snake is composed of special inorganic substances similar to iron ore, it also possesses the strangulation ability of snakes. Even more. Click, click. Just for a moment. Although Boscordora was barely supported by the weight brought by her innate strength and heavy metal characteristics, she was not directly dragged off the ground. But in the heavy armor, cracks and gaps gradually appeared in this terrifying squeeze. The crack on the left shoulder that had been hit by the straight drill had collapsed immediately. In an instant, offense and defense are easy to change. If it continues, Boscodora is likely to be stunned by the death coil of the big steel snake. In times of crisis, the role of the trainer is reflected here. Hold on. Squeaky interference. Two commands came in succession, calming down Boscodora, who subconsciously broke free by instinct, and the invisible power surged from within the body, turning it into a force of integration, making Boscodo pull the steel armor on the verge of shattering to protect it. No matter how the big steel snake binds the lock, it is not twisted, and it is tenacious and not completely broken. At the same time, roar. A dull low roar came from Boscodora's mouth, turning into a special high-frequency sound that attacked the big steel snake's brain. The big steel snake suddenly showed pain. But not only did it not relax its body, but it exerted more force, intending to stun Boscodora as soon as possible and get rid of this annoying noise. Roar. X2. In the roars one after another, the two sides refused to give in to each other, and seemed to be caught in a competition of perseverance for a while. Auditorium. Is this a desperate attempt to kill the Jedi? With Erlang's legs crossed, Qinglu, who was half reliant on the seat, said in a low voice when he saw the next scene. With his eyesight and tactical level, he can see through this level of CFED tactics almost at a glance. That Boscodora may not have been intentionally caught by the big steel snake's binding trick, but the subsequent instructions clearly revealed the idea of preparing for a Jedi counterattack. Instead of using hold to break free, use hold, which cannot resist damage, but is a unique trick to maintain the final stamina. This is putting yourself to death first. The harsh sound, the change type, the interference and damage of its roll is not high. The main role is to reduce the opponent's defense. Forcibly endure it but allow the opponent to reduce its own stamina. Instead of counterattacking, the opponent's defense is reduced in such a situation. Add these 2 points together. The answer, for a top trainer like Qinglu, is already obvious. Next, it should be about taking damage to determine the power of the physical attack type counterattack, right? Take the risk. However, it's a useful strategy if it's unexpected. If it hits successfully, the outcome is decided. The blue-green eyes were sloppy, and it seemed that he had completely seen the progress of the next game. He didn't feel bad about the real Xinjun player who suddenly appeared in Xiao Huang, but he also had no idea of seeing him as an opponent. Although in terms of talent, this little girl is really enough to make him look at him. But whether it is will or mind, they are too immature. During the competition, they will be stunned by the fierce offensive of the opponent. In Qinglu's heart, as a trainer, it is unqualified. But don't jump to conclusions in such a hurry, turquoise. The familiar voice caused Qinglu to turn her eyes away for the first time, looked at Baizi, and raised her eyebrows. Do you think there is still a fight? No, Tilda. Baizi shook his finger. I also agree that the outcome has been decided, but it's Xiao Huang Sheng. Quote. You don't think that black girl will easily let the big steel snake break free at the last moment, right? Because it was Baizi who spoke. Qinglu thought for a second, but she still rejected this possible. After all, no matter what, they were the same, monster-level trainers who successfully entered the gate. Qinglu didn't think she would make such a mistake. Then wait and see Tilda. Baizi shrugged and didn't make any further excuses. After all, no one can know better than him the tenacity that the big steel snake possesses that is different from ordinary snakes. What's more, it is better to see the facts with your own eyes than to talk too much. And this moment. In the field. This battle of perseverance is gradually coming to an end. Closing parenthesis. 394. Reversal, Alice's absolute trump card. Woo tilde. Click underscore. With a slight muffled sound, Boscodora, who had been down by the noose for 2 laps, gradually disintegrated, and the steel armor that was barely supported suddenly shattered again. Crack. And right now. Beat. Xiao Huang's clear shouting sound suddenly sounded. Next second. Roar. The big steel snake with the long-tailed lock-twisting Boscodora is about to get up and smash it down at the last moment. I have to say, the timing is just right. It is Bosco, who has been holding on for a long time. It's time to vent your energy. And if this blow is successful, all the tactics, plans that have been laid out for a long time will be in vain. However, speaking of the big steel snake, although the previous strong resistance was much smaller, but the torso was twisted halfway, but the body seemed to be stuck in the air. The familiar feeling of foreign body congestion made the big steel snake, who recalled some bad memories, instantly furious. An iron tail shining with metallic luster, like an iron comb, was stuck in the big steel snake's work. In the gap between the 7th and 8th stone bodies that are the core focus. Few people know that although the big rock snake and its evolutionary shape, the big steel snake, seem to twist freely, it actually has a core focus. And there are 2 in total. In the gaps between the 3rd and 4th, and 7th and 8th stone bodies, respectively. These 2 places are equivalent to the human cervical spine and the lumbar spine. It can also be understood as the gear of the machine. Once it is restricted, it will be difficult to play the role of transfer. Won't let you run away. Although she didn't speak, Alice's eyes meant that, and through this brief moment of rigidity, Alice raised her voice and ordered, "Metal explosion." Boscodora's body rises with its dazzling white light, when the light reaches its zenith. Boom! The loud explosion covered the entire venue in an instant, and its intensity even caused the shield of the safety device to shake from a distance. The crowd in the auditorium seemed to be sitting in the middle of the vibration source. Heart, with the roaring sound, tossed to and fro. After a long time, the explosion gradually disappeared, and the smoke screen gradually dissipated. Alice clenched her fists, and Xiao Huang subconsciously held her breath. In the eyes of everyone searching, Boscodora, whose armor was nearly shattered in half, was panting violently, and in front of it, a giant rock snake covered with charred traces lay on the ground, as if it had fallen into coma. Hey who? With her eyes half closed, Boscodora cast a glance at the big steel snake lying on the ground, revealing a hint of a smile in her fierce expression. Then, in the roar of the sky, he fell to the ground. Mouth pen. A layer of dust and smoke splashed from the almost sandy ground. Boscodora passed out with a satisfied smile. On the stand, Baizi even saw Qinglu's little eyes cast towards him, and that expression seemed to say again, "Look, am I right?" But it has not yet been announced by the referee. The charred big steel snake suddenly shook its head, and along with the stones falling off, a brand new big steel snake that had shrunk by a full circle swam out of it. Obviously, from the state point of view, not only did it not lose its fighting ability, on the contrary, its remaining physical strength was quite abundant. Qinglu was immediately dumbfounded, but he quickly reacted, lightweight. No, not only. Even if the body is lightweight to achieve an outer layer of protection similar to peeling, it is impossible to offset this level of attack so easily. The resistance and vitality of this big steel snake are absolutely extraordinary. Listening to Qinglu's firm words, Baizi chuckled lightly, and couldn't help but admire Qinglu's eyesight. There is no systematic verification. Relying solely on his own experience and eyesight, you can instantly determine the peculiarities of this big steel snake. Should I say, is it really green? At the same time, in the field, although I know that this guy's vitality is very tenacious, I didn't expect to be tenacious to such an extent. After sighing and pulling the fainted Boscorda back into the Pokeball, Alice stared at Boscodora, who was sleeping sweetly in the Pokeball. Ask for flowers. Thinking about it, do you want to hide the fact that it failed in the Jedi counterattack after the game? Never mind. Hits are also good for growth. Recalling her master's simple and rude education method, Alice restrained her thoughts and took out the third Pokeball from her pocket. I was forced to take the lead out of the General . But the tougher the fight, the more excited you'll be, right? Alice's expression is still full of dragon-like high. It seems that her fighting spirit will not be affected by any external factors. Up. Pop 1. With the light drink, the light flashes. An upright dragon-like elf with a pair of sharp teeth-like axe, stripes all over the body, wearing olive green scale armor, and the rest of the small parts are black, appeared in the field. The edges of the axe and tomahawk on both sides of the cheeks were red, the same color as the sharp claws on the hands and feet, as if they were infected with blood. The end of the scale armor on the neck is like a section of spikes, and its nodal structure extends from the top of the head to the long and flexible tail. This is a fairly rare pure dragon-type elf, and its sharp axe-like teeth are enough to easily sever a super-alloyed dual-axe battle dragon. Same. It is also exactly what Alice holds, the absolute trump card. Race: double-axe fighting dragon. Attribute: dragon. Characteristics: exceptional. Level: champion beginner, level 72, 75 100ths. Potential: quasi-god. HP: 76, attack: 147, defense: 90, special attack: 60, special defense: 70, speed: 97. Open black lens bracket skill: slightly. Close black lens bracket. Genetic skill: shadow vitals. Open black lens bracket status: perfect close black lens bracket. Introduction: a two-axe fighting dragon with excellent qualifications, has extremely powerful fighting instincts, and is good at grasping the opponent's mistakes and omissions and killing them with one blow. Begging. 395. Fierce fighting, one hit is better than one hit. Different from Alice's two hands before, this double-axe dragon appeared very restrained when it appeared, without roaring, and its aura seemed to be absent. It is completely different from the publicity and arrogance of ordinary dragon elves, and the silence is like stagnant water, like a piece of dead wood. Double-axe fighting dragon. Xiao Huang glanced at the upright dragon beast that was as silent as a rock on the arena, his expression subconsciously tense, and immediately made an action to take out the pokeball and retract the big steel snake. As the successor of the strongest vibrant power in the world, Xiao Huang's vibrant power can not only understand the voice of the elves, but also trace the emotional memory of the elves while touching them. Get along for a few months. Although this two-axe fighting dragon is relatively withdrawn, it is still inevitable to have contact with Xiao Huang, who is the healer of the team. Therefore, although unintentional, Xiao Huang still used this 297 inches to learn a lot about the past of the two-axe fighting dragon. Hatched from a pair of corpses. No clan, no parents, surviving alone on the sinister Dragon Island. Meeting the young Alice who accidentally went deep into Dragon Island. Alert, moved, and supportive of each other. Finally, come together to get out of Dragon Island, and make up your mind to follow Alice. The ending of the story is complete enough. But the darkness of the double-axe fighting dragon in its infancy still had a profound impact on it. Always maintain sufficient vigilance and restrained breath. And in the same way, fighting for it is hunting. Never leave a hand at all. The strength of the big rock snake is already quite different from that of the double-axe fighting dragon. In addition, his own injuries are not too light. Naturally, Xiao Huang does not intend to leave it to be abused by the opponent on the field. But, although her reaction is not slow, the action of the double-axe fighting dragon is faster. Just when Xiao Huang took off the elf ball on his waist and aimed at the direction of the big steel snake, he released the storage ray. Whoosh _. As if they were walking close to the ground, the two-axe battle dragon approached the big steel snake at a super high speed that was almost indistinguishable to the naked eye, and passed by without stopping. Choke. The sound of the clash of gold and iron was resonant, and then the double axe and dragon skating to the ground and slid back, and the two interlaced air blades suddenly bloomed. To the point. With one blow, the big rock snake, who had been hit by Boscodora's Jedi, turned his eyes up, and two huge gaps were cut out as the two parts of the inheritance. And until this moment, the storage ray of the pokeball was long overdue. Xiao Huang, who took back the big steel snake, was a little silent. I didn't expect it to be too late, but fortunately, she could see that the double-axe fighting dragon didn't hit too hard after all, and the big steel snake's injury was not too bad. Too heavy. He breathed a sigh of relief, put away the big steel snake, and released his last elf. Snake-necked head and showy down feathers. The elf of Xiao Huang is the last big axis is the great archaeological bird given by Bai Zi. Race, Archaeopteryx. Attribute, rock, flying. Characteristic, tough, mutation exclusive. When HP is halved, double attack will be multiplied. Level, champion beginner, level 72, 2100s. Potential, champion. Introduction, the ancient sky overlord, whose characteristics triggered the benign mutation of the ancestors under the stimulation of the power of Xiao Huang Vivian. Tisk tisk. Looking at the attribute panel of Archaeopteryx, Bai Zi couldn't help but stunned. It doesn't matter if the level is gradually restored, and even the characteristics can cause a benign atavistic mutation through the excitation of the power of Vibrant. Sure enough, a hang is stronger than a hang. To know. Archaeopteryx's double attack is 140 and 112 respectively. If it is multiplied, it will become 280 and 224. This level of double attack, the same level of legendary elves will be against it. Scalp tingling. Think about it, the Super Dream X and Y with the highest double attack have not exceeded 200, you should know what this effect means on the Archaeopteryx. Poor. Bai Zi glanced at Alice with a look of pity on his face. I don't know if this poor child knew about this mutation of Archaeopteryx. But come to think of it, you probably don't know. Otherwise. Alice's expression at this time will not be so warlike. Soon. The battle begins. As soon as the two sides make a shot, they are full of strength, there is no unnecessary temptation at all, and the rotation of offense and defense is dizzying. Rock blockade. Air slash. Double blade hammer. Under Xiao Huang's commanding ability that is almost visible to the naked eye, the Archaeopteryx seems to be galloping above the sky of the competition for hegemony. Liliang's hissing sound swayed the falling stones all over the sky, and the wings shook, and countless sharp blades swayed. Check the timing from time to time. It turned into a cruise cannonball and shot straight down, with the momentum of a head hammer, like digging rocks from a mountain. And opposite, Alice and the two-axe dragon also showed no weakness. Under concise instructions. The two-axe fighting dragon, Dragon Claw, ripped apart the blade, and smashed through the heavy falling rocks between the two split swings, rushing straight up at high speed, like a big sword who was not afraid of death and was reckless on the battlefield. It didn't take a moment for him to rush to the bottom of the Archaeopteryx. Provocation. Quote exclamation mark. The bloody tyrant's killing intent penetrated through the sky, shot from the eyes of the double-axe fighting dragon, and directly printed the ancestor bird in the air, stirring the anger in the opponent's heart. Gah! The roar that shook the air suddenly resounded. Double blade hammer. Under Xiao Huang's timely response instructions, the ancestral big bird complied with the anger in his heart, his wings suddenly retracted, and the whole body turned into a torpedo and fell straight down. Under the attachment of the energy factor of the rock system, it is like a meteor hitting the ground, rubbing the air out of a little bit of Mars. Come on, wide area destruction. Alice naturally showed no weakness. One command. Roar tilde. In the low roar, the double-axe dragon sank his waist and immediately looked at the meteor that fell 4.3 down from the top of his head, looked at the timing, and turned sideways. The tenacious dragon tail wrapped in the dragon-type energy armor swept across, and while scouring to weaken the opponent's strength, it slammed directly on the head of the ancestor bird. And the next second. Melee. X2. Accompanied by the almost unanimous command sound, Both the double-axe battle dragon and the Archaeopteryx strongly supported the reaction force without retreating but advancing, their sharp claws interlaced and knocked against each other. Scarlet dragon eyes and black and white eyes meet each other. Then, sip. The head hammer and the axe suddenly collided. Closing parenthesis. 396. Sufficient charge, super bird with one punch. End. After the collision between the hammer and the axe, the fighting between the two sides became more and more intense. Especially when one of the two sides has the advantage of ground-to-air maneuvering and the other can keep up with the explosive speed, the two sides can almost be said to have hit the ground from the sky, making it difficult for the two sides to hit the ground. At the same time, his eyes are dizzying, and his blood is also boiling. But, as the so-called layman watches the fun, the expert watches the doorway. From the point of view of command ability alone, and constantly absorbing nutrients from Alice's body, Xiao Huang, who has grown up with flying shot, can already be said to not be a hindrance. But the combat experience. No, it should be said that it is a fighting habit, but the two axes and dragons have one more than one. As an ancient sky overlord, fighting and being killed can be said to be almost the entire ancient bird life that runs through the Archaeopteryx, and the old way of combat experience is naturally unnecessary. But the double-axe fighting dragon is actually not inferior in this regard. Hatched from the corpses of his parents, he has to face the ferocious nature on Long Island since he was a child, and survive alone. Survival and fighting are also deeply rooted in blood and bones. What is different from the Archaeopteryx is that, in addition to the rich fighting experience, the double-axe dragon also has a systematic professional training for physique and skills. Born in a wild way like Archaeopteryx, he has not undergone enough corrections, and still has too many elves with habitual small movements. In its eyes, there are too many flaws. If it weren't for the fact that this ancestor bird's fighting experience was too rich, and even formed an instinctive, natural response to a sense of crisis, the two-axe fighting dragon would have seen the right time and put the opponent on the line. Pull down the ground, press and hit. But even so, the double-axe fighting dragon still relies on the inconspicuous tricks of the professional players, such as releasing force and applying force, and constantly resolves its own force under the frontal collision in repeated collisions. Insignificant, additional damage to the opponent. E.g., when the six claws are intertwined, at a specific angle, the wrist joints of their claws are sprained. These little tricks. Bai Zi naturally saw it at a glance. This is also why trained elves are generally stronger than wild elves of the same level. Because it also contains the crystallization of the wisdom and sweat of human trainers. Have to say, the so-called mention of 1,000 miles collapsed in the ant's nest. This kind of soft and silent additional damage, under normal circumstances, even if you don't consider the weakness characteristic of the Archaeopteryx, it is concealed enough and quite practical. But unfortunately, it was unfortunate that Alice encountered an abnormal situation. Almost, it's time to trigger. After a while, Bai Zi, whose eyes shone with no visible streamer, whispered softly. And as his voice fell, in the field. Sip. Ga tilde. In another collision, the claws of the ancestors of the big bird seemed to be twisted, and they suddenly trembled uncontrollably, failing to fly up like before. Chance. Alice and the two-axe battle dragon lit up almost at the same time. Guillotine. Roar. Almost at the same time as Alice roared, the double-axe dragon took a step forward and rushed forward, grabbing the dragon claws, and firmly clasping the torso of the Archaeopteryx. By. The sharp teeth like an axe stretched forward, attached to the gray luster, like jaws, and cut towards the neck of the Archaeopteryx. In the nick of time. Ga. Seeing that the unavoidable ancestor bird ignored the pair of dragon claws caught in its feathers, it struggled and twisted away. Click _. A crisp bone crack sounded. Along with the scattered feathers and blood, the Archaeopteryx, whose right wing was almost cut off by the roots, slammed with a pair of bird claws, and slammed heavily on the face of the double-axe fighting dragon. Stomping. Wu tilde. This angry blow was really heavy, and the double-axe fighting dragon's brain was dizzy when he was kicked, and his claws couldn't help but loosen, and the ancestor bird also took this opportunity to break free and retreated violently with a single step. The blood feathers were scattered all over the ground along the way, the right wing was pulled on one side, and the distance was almost like a rolling gourd, which was a few dozen meters away. It's a pity. Alice sighed subconsciously, followed by a smile. However, the outcome is already divided. Give it the final blow, 2 axes and dragons, wide area destruction. Do not hesitate to pursue the victory. The 2-axe dragon also rushed forward immediately after sobering up as ordered. The bright green energy armor wrapped around the long tail, and flew halfway through the air. It spun down vertically like a top, and slashed down toward the great ancestral bird, which was half relying on the ground. Sip. The dull sound of physical collisions came, and the ferocious force exploded the dust on the ground into smoke, filling the surroundings. Soon, the smoke dissipated. Wow! What? Accompanied by the short, near-sounding sound from the auditorium, Alice looked into the arena with round eyes. Only see. Except for the ancestral bird with half of its wings, its eyes seemed to be open and closed, and its embarrassed figure was half kneeling on the ground, but the raised left wing steadily caught the volley of the double-axe dragon. He got up, the invisible arrogance surging and rising. After the charging was completed, it was time for one punch to surpass the bird. Moment. As the ancestor bird slowly raised his eyes, a deadly sense of crisis ran straight from the back of the 2-axe fighting dragon's cerebral cortex. Alice couldn't help but frown. Quick. The response is fast. But unfortunately, even the word, withdraw, has not had time to say it. Alice felt a flash in front of her. Next second, the Archaeopteryx has already grabbed the long tail of the double-axe fighting dragon with a backhand and yanked it in his direction, and then backhanded the round. Sip beak beak 297 sip sip. The dull banging sound was like firecrackers, and the scene was almost no different from the Hulk beating Loki in the Avengers. Smoke and dust were everywhere, and the ground was smashed. After everything calms down, the smoke gradually dissipated. On the field, the Archaeopteryx, who was still very embarrassed, was isolated between the huge potholes on the left and right sides, and the 2-axe fighting dragon, which had the upper hand before, had already been lying on the left side like a ooze. In the pit, his eyes were white, and he was foaming at the mouth, as if he had completely lost his ability to fight. The venue was silent. Almost everyone was stunned by the sudden reversal. And then, oh, was the sound of enthusiastic cheers that seemed to overturn the ceiling of the venue. A desperate counter-kill. This is indeed unexpected enough, and it is exciting, a wonderful duel. P.S. Because Xiaohuang still has a role in the back, we will focus on Alice's body. Then, let's congratulate the black girl for finishing her career tilde. By the way, do you feel that the Silver Mountain competition is too long? 397. You fell down before I tried my best. Are you going to lose? Although there is still a half-crippled 3-headed dragon in her hand, Alice knows that with the strength of the aura expressed by this great Archaeopteryx today, let alone the half-crippled 3-headed dragon, even if in its heyday, it couldn't stand the opponent's 1.5 move. After all, she could see clearly that what the Archaeopteryx used to defeat his ace double-axe dragon was just pure brute force. But I didn't expect Xiaohuang to hide such a skill, but, is it a special move or an unknown feature? Thinking like this, Alice took out the Pokeball with 3 evil dragons from her waist after retracting the 2-axe dragon. Although you know you will lose. But, as a qualified trainer, fleeing without a fight is not her style. Come on, 3 evil dragons. ... There is no surprise in the ending. Although the 3 evil dragons and Alice have done their best, they only use the advantage of flying air to deal with it for a few rounds. In the end, the curtain came to an end in the huge sandstorm that seemed to connect the heavens and the earth. 3 evil dragons lost their ability to fight, and all Alice players couldn't fight. The winner is Xiao Huang from Junqian Town. With referee Caesar's verdict, the first 4 finalists are officially selected. Wow! Immediately, warm applause broke out in the venue. This applause was not only to celebrate the birth of the first semi-finalist, but also to recognize Alice's unyielding trainer spirit. At the same time, the performance of Archaeopteryx has also raised the vigilance of other players towards Xiao Huang by more than one level. Too strong. Whether it is characteristic skills, etc., are hidden in the early stage, from the performance of the second half of this ancestor bird, even the red, green and green are 2 people. Holding the main force, I don't dare to win easily. Must be handled with care. The first battle is over. After a brief refurbishment, the second race also started quickly. Cyan vs Electric Times. Maybe it was because the blood in my heart was aroused by the previous battles, maybe I didn't want to play anymore, or maybe I wanted to warm up before the official battle. This time, Qinglu finally became a little more serious and released the combat power in his hands, which was enough to belong to the first echelon. Ow tilde. With a low roar, a behemoth deformed from the shining rays and fell to the ground. The loud explosion made the field of the plain terrain tremble slightly. Into the eye. It is a human standing Tyrannosaurus nearly 4 meters tall. On the top of its head, the long sharp silver horns exude a ferocious cold light. The sturdy and huge body is lined with black armor and covered with orange patches. A piece of red armor to protect the vulnerable joints. The huge arms like gun barrels slammed into each other, and suddenly made a dull sound of cracking stones. Race: Super Iron Tyrannosaurus, Super Iron Rhinoceros. Attribute: Ground, Rock. Characteristic: Hard Rock. Level: Champion Intermediate, Level 74, 2100s. Potential: Champion. HP: 115, Attack: 140, Defense: 130, Special Attack: 55, Special Defense: 55, Speed. Exclusive Skill: Rock Cannon. 40. Skills: Arm Hammer, Heavy Stomp, Rock Critical Strike, Rock Blockade. Genetic Skill: Double Return. Status: Perfect. Introduction: Strong physique and special training can offset most of the reaction force of skills, and have precise and extremely fast artillery skills. Characteristics: Isn't it actually sacrificing yourself? Baizi is not too surprised that Qinglu has a super iron Tyrannosaurus. After all, the concept of communication, interaction, evolution was proposed. For Dr. Damu, he wanted to draw inferences from other facts. It is only a matter of time before the rest of the evolutionary forms emerge. What's more, Dr. Damu has the most complete elves database in the elves world. Similar to duck-billed fire dragons and electric shock beasts, elves whose evolutionary genes are not completely stable, I am afraid Dr. Damu has a backup. I am afraid that the short time of this deduction will exceed the expectations of most people. After all, if there is still controversy about being the first trainer, then the apex of Dr. Elf must, and definitely will only be Dr. Damu. The reason why Baizi pays attention to the characteristics is because the iron-armored Tyrannosaurus Rex is one of the rare elf races with exclusive skills. Its exclusive trick, Rock Cannon, has a power of up to 150, but it is a move with reaction damage. And the function of the characteristic, Sacrifice, is to increase the power of all such moves by 20%. That is to say, if the Super Iron Tyrannosaurus has the Sacrifice feature, the power of the Rock Cannon will be as high as 180. This kind of power is enough to send a defenseman with a similar level directly away within 3 shots. But alas, it's not. It can also be seen from the introduction that Qinglu also guided the training in the direction of the heavy gunner, but there is a small flaw in the characteristics. Judging from Baizi's understanding of Qinglu, a severe obsessive-compulsive disorder and a perfectionist, this Super Iron Tyrannosaurus may not be a member of his final 6 team. Tisk tisk, this is also the green as a cultivator, other people, even if they are crimson, I am afraid they will not use such an extravagant screening method. After sighing, Bai Zi turned his attention to the field again. Right now, fighting. Do not. It should be said that it is abusive. Start. Rock cannon. Ow. The Röntgen cat that was constantly surrounding him at high speed and releasing high-speed stars. Unhurriedly raising his arm forward, at the palm of the gun barrel, a circle of fine wind pressure began to swirl. Next second. Sip underscore. The gun barrel shook, and an oval stone ball the size of a football suddenly shot out, hitting the body of the Röntgen cat directly from the afterimages surrounding it. Woo! A short cry of pain sounded, and the Röntgen cat, which had set foot in the Heavenly King's domain, Nuo Jiao, flew straight out, like a grenade, and slammed into the alloy wall at the edge of the venue. I got so caught up in it that I couldn't even buckle it out. ... One hit, instant kill. On the opposite side, Dianji's eyes were dull. Seeing this time, Qinglu immediately smiled disdainfully. I didn't even try, and you fell down. Really? The main course was tedious until it was served. Then, get rid of this guy as soon as possible. In Qinglu Jia's glance, a hint of impatience suddenly flashed, and after Dianji released the second elf to fight, which was also his trump card, the electric shock beast. Suddenly cold drink. Get rid of it, Yingfeng. Earthquake. Slave. 398. 2Z, the third main force of Crimson. Ow. Seemingly feeling the trainer's impatience, the super iron Tyrannosaurus roared, and while his right leg stepped on the ground, his arms like the barrel of a heavy artillery were intertwined with 6 fingers. Immediately, the ground roared, and rows of huge stone slabs several meters thick burst out of the earth, which quickly extended and merged like a wall covering the sky, turning into a huge stone pier that covered half of the field. The electric shock beasts that haven't had time to react are completely included. Next second, the turbulent impact rushed out from the feet of the super iron Tyrannosaurus recklessly, and between the earth and the mountains, the stone pier collapsed and slammed down. ... Rock blockade plus earthquake. The dust and smoke exploded, and soon, on the ground covered with traces of waves, the electric beasts whose strength was infinitely close to the peak of the King of Heaven lay miserably in a pothole, covered in bruises and bruises, without making a sound. Another spike. Dianji stared blankly at the electric monster lying on the ground, and suddenly there was a violent shaking in his heart. So simple, without the power to fight back, he is really suitable to become a trainer. Such a huge gap. His strongest trump card is as weak as a child. Especially 310. Still defeated so miserably under the eyes of the goddess whom I have admired for a long time. Depression, chest tightness, and a huge sense of shame instantly destroyed Dianji's psychological defense line. His knees softened, and he immediately fell to his knees on the podium. I admit defeat. Waste wood. The expression on Qinglu's face became even more disdainful. Then, after the referee announced the victory and defeat, he turned around and left the corridor. Tisk tisk, a heavenly king who was in the wild was directly destroyed. It's a pity. Having said that, there was not much pity on Bai Zi's face. It can be seen from the plot in the game that although his strength and talent are not inferior to those of his friend Day, who is currently the God of Fire King. But when Day began to challenge the 4 heavenly kings, he was preparing, and he was still preparing after Day's challenge was successful. Even after preparing to the end, he gradually became obsessed with making electrical equipment in Binhai Gym and lost his fighting spirit. Although according to Dai Yi, his friend lost his fighting spirit because he was bored without a strong challenger. CFED, but isn't he invincible? If nothing else, Shanao's local champion, the 4 heavenly kings, has no weaklings. Even in the face of the youngest Day, he dares to say that he will win. Not to mention that the Tianwang Challenge is held every year, and I don't see him participating in it. As for no time. Don't have time to participate in the Heavenly Kings Challenge in this area, but I have time to travel all the way to participate in the Rookie Class, Kanto League Conference. I'm afraid that I thought I was here to fry the fish pond, but instead I ran into a deep-sea giant shark, right? Therefore, Baizi actually prefers that he gradually lost his fighting spirit in preparation, and dare not try a battle with an unknown outcome. Just a weak-minded guy. The second semi-finalist is determined, green. Soon. Flashing again on the big screen. With the sound of ding, a man and a woman appeared on the left and right of the screen. Oh. Baizi raised his eyebrows slightly. Immediately afterwards, the announcement of Caesar, the interpreter, resounded throughout the venue. The competition for the semi-finals of the Silver Mountain Alliance Conference, the third game. The two sides of the battle are the red player from Junshin Town in the Kanto region, and the Tuko player from Luzi Town in the Hejong region. There are players from both sides, please appear. The voice fell. Accompanied by bursts of cheers and applause, Kaihong and Tuzi walked out of the corridors on both sides and stepped onto their respective podiums. This time, it's really interesting. Baizi's expression was slightly different, not to mention the power of Crimson Red, although Tuzi's conventional combat strength was far from the difference. However, she is carrying the legendary white dragon, Reshiram's. It's okay to say that if it's not released, once it's released. I am afraid that of all the players in the entire venue, only he can suppress Toko. After all, today's Kai Yi is not a late-stage 100-level Kai, who is cultivating in Baiyan Mountain. Facing the legends of the upper ranks, it is still a little too difficult. While thoughts are flying in the field, following the referee's order, both sides released their elves immediately. The first is Toshi. She seems to like the use of generals in the first battle. The light flickered. The Yanwu king of the middle rank of the Heavenly King appeared in the field. Wait. Baizi's momentary gap was wrong. Because the beard-like flame color on King Yanwu's neck turned blue. Pupil flashed. Next second. Race. King Yanwu, blue flame form. Attribute. Fire fighting. Characteristic. Fire. Level. Champion beginner, level 70, 0-100. Opening square bracket ellipsis closing square bracket. Status. Unstable energy level. Introduction. Accept the baptism of true flame from White Dragon, Reshiram, awaken the blue flame form, and greatly increase his strength. Sure enough, it's open and hung up. Baizi raised his eyebrows slightly, a hint of understanding flashed in his eyes. Subsequently, he turned his attention to the crimson battle spirit again. Petite, no more than a meter at most, with a light brown belly with nodules, while most of the rest are dark brown. There is a spike at the end of the tail. There is a claw finger on each hand that acts as a thumb, and a skull mask is placed on its head. It is said, this is what was left after the death of his mother when he was a child. After evolution, it has been completely integrated with the body and has become a part of the body. The bone rod in the hand is said to be possessed by nature and is its weapon. This elf is also a rare, non-ghost type elf that lives in the cemetery in large numbers. It turned out to be this quack. Baizi's eyes narrowed. Because if his memory and senses are correct, this Gala Gala is exactly what he saw in the backyard of Dr. Damu. Among the 11 Crimson Elves. With a deep breath, he is only the strongest under the fire-breathing dragon and Pikachu. 399. The style of the person recognized by the white dragon. Is this guy one of Chi's main arms? Baizi muttered to himself, and the radiance that no one could see also radiated from his pupils. In an instant, it suddenly appeared. Open black lens bracket race. Gala Gala close black lens bracket. Attribute, ground. Characteristic, battle armor, Monty, will not be hit by the opponent. Level, champion high, level 77, 55/100. Potential, champion. HP, 60, attack, 80, defense, 110, special attack, 50, special defense, 80, speed, approximately 45. Bone boomerang. Skills, throwing mud, earthquake, stomping feet, power of the earth, smashing with bone sticks, sword dance, strange power. Genetic skills, abdominal drum, see-through. Open black lens bracket status, perfect close black lens bracket. Introduction, has a very good ability to manipulate attribute energy, but he is a master of land warfare who is very good at short-range comprehensive pulling operations. This. Looking at the information provided in the introduction column, Baizi's expression suddenly became a little strange. This familiar, although but, nesting doll phrase reminded him unconsciously. Akin's fire beast. This red guy. Glancing a glance and taking out the notebook not far away, Qinglu, who was watching the battle attentively, suddenly had a guess in Baizi's heart. Should we start targeting Qinglu now? No, Shu and Xiao Huang's counterintelligence plan, right? Tisk tilde. These guys really have enough to go all out. Just as Baizi's thoughts were surging. In the field. Following the referee's order, Tuzi took the lead in launching a rush attack. King Yanwu, spray flames. Yeah, wow. King Yanwu Chuji slapped his abdomen with his arms, and immediately, a blue flame spewed out of its mouth, turning into a line of fire extending from the void, burning towards the opposite Gala. Avoid, throw mud, the power of the earth. Gala tilde. Following the crimson and cold command sound, Gala immediately avoided a smooth iron plate bridge, shoveling the ground with a bone stick, and then shoveled down. Immediately, a puff of ooze flew out at a rather tricky angle, and before King Yanwu pursued it, he hit its face one step at a time, instantly covering King Yanwu's vision. Wire. Wu tilde. King Yanwu suddenly slowed his offensive, and subconsciously reached out his hand to wipe the mud on his face. Boom, underscore. A feeling of shaking the ground suddenly came from under his feet, and the sudden upward impact struck, causing King Yanwu to stand unsteadily. Fortunately, King Yanwu was an elf who was good at fighting. He immediately used the technique of Taishan pressing the top, to stabilize his figure, so that he was not knocked into the air by this upward impact. However, the linear light-ons rising all over its body still indicate that its special defense has been lowered. Be careful, get out of the way. Just as he was about to breathe a sigh of relief, Toko's anxious voice suddenly came. King Yanwu didn't have time to confirm the situation, so he acted immediately, using rounding to curl up, and then using rolling to turn around. Don't say it. King Yanwu is sturdy, but his mobility is quite agile. A set of movements was almost smooth, and in the blink of an eye, he rolled over 10 meters away. And the next second. Puff 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 puff. Dozens of conical rock blocks, the thickness of an adult's forearm, directly tied a hornet's nest to its previous foothold. And in the afterglow. Opposite, Gala stepped back, swung her arms sideways, and suddenly threw it in the direction of King Yanwu. A bone boomerang. The bone dart broke through the wind and flew at an astonishingly fast speed. In the blink of an eye. It has already raided in front of King Yanwu, and the image is printed in the pupil, and it continues to enlarge. In the nick of time. Hold on. Wu tilde. Following Tuzi's urgent order, King Yanwu didn't have time to get up, he just half-kneeled and raised his strong arms to protect his face. Suddenly, a layer of bright green semicircular energy shield suddenly rose. And next. Holding, shield in front of King Yanwu. With a sip, the shield spreads and shakes like ripples rising from the lake. Next second. Slap, underscore. With the shattering of the holding shield, it was transmitted to Piran to make him strong, and the king of Yanwu, who was also very strong, was like a chicken that was hit by a car. It flew out in midair, and bounced and rolled on the ground for more than a dozen laps before barely supporting his body. He plowed out 2 ravines several inches deep on the ground and slowly stagnated. ... Ask for flowers. Arms, like shaking wheat, are trembling all the time. So strong. What a powerful force. King Yanwu's expression was condensed, and he was about to stand up. Swoosh. Small. Accompanied by the howling wind and the trainer's unfinished cry. Sip. A dull crash sounded. The swirling bone rods were like cruise missiles, and they traveled precisely in the arc of the blind spot of the line of sight, hitting the back of King Yanwu directly. King Yanwu rolled his eyes, and his huge figure suddenly rushed forward along with the strength. After falling to the ground, it slid for a few meters. 0. Half a sound, no movement. The difference in level is not small, and it is a ground-based trick that the vulnerable part of the back of the head bears double the damage. Quote. Heart. And only then did Toko murmur another word out of his mouth. Looking at the indifferent figure on the opposite side, who was gently pressing the brim of his hat, and who was already spinning his bone stick in the field, a drop of sweat dripped from Toko's forehead. This guy who didn't show up before. So strong. And the rank of this Gala is definitely much higher than that of my Yanwu King. Looking back on the previous scene when King Yanwu defended his skills, and when he simply threw himself on the street after taking a blow, Tuzi's eyes flashed and he was determined. However, it's been using ranged skills to fight from start to finish, is it? Is close combat its weak point? Tuzi, who lost a game first and lost the main ace of his own, did not show any panic. On the contrary, she began to review and analyze the opponent right away. With such a performance, it is no wonder that she has become a trainer recognized by the White Dragon Reshiram. Begging. 400, come on, let me experience the power of God. Since melee combat might be a weakness. Tuzi's eyes were fixed, and after calmly withdrawing King Yanwu and saying, "It's hard work," he suddenly threw the second pokeball without the referee's reminder. "Look at you, flaming horse." Oh. Accompanied by a long neigh, a pale yellow horse with a single horn and a flaming mane grows from the top of the head along the back to the tail of the horse. The flame-like mane flew up, and it was automatic without wind, looking very handsome. But this flaming horse's fiery temples are not the usual flame color, but the same blue color as the previous Yanwu King. Even without Baizi's power to investigate, Baizi knew that this was another handheld, 310, hung with a flame. Sure enough. Race, flame horse blue flame form. Attribute, fire. Characteristic, body of fire, Monty. There is a certain chance that the opponent who touches him will become a burning state. Level, champion beginner, level 70, 0/100. 1. Status, unstable energy level. Real flame, of the White Dragon Reshiram, awaken the blue flame form, and greatly increase the strength. Flaming horse, move at high speed. The slender horns. Shout, _. Tuzi attacked again, and as soon as her words fell, there was a whoosh sound in the field, and the flame horse lived up to Tuzi's expectations and exploded at an unimaginable high speed. Everyone present only felt a flower in front of them, and in the next second, the flaming horse had already crossed hundreds of meters, and instantly rushed to the front of Gala. The slender single horn shining with the metal edge is only 3 feet away from the rib cage of Gala. And right now. Thump, _. Gala, who seemed to be unresponsive at first, suddenly stood up with a pestle. Next second. Just when the sharp long horns were less than a punch away from the chest, a stone slab suddenly rose from the feet of the roar. When he lifted it up, he just stopped in front of the flame horse. Poof, _. The sharp long horns suddenly pierced the stone wall in front. But then, another 3 slates rose up, and the capping slates condensed out of thin air between the Gala bone sticks that jumped up above. A square stone prison suddenly appeared in the field. Skill, the rock is closed. Puff 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 puff. The sound like a sharp weapon piercing the skin suddenly rang out. Soon, dozens of holes were poked out of the rock wall that had been penetrated. Seeing that the flame horse is about to get out of trouble. Hum _. In the field, on the periphery of the square stone prison, the scattered stones suddenly flashed light, and it became brighter and brighter. Toko's pupils shrank suddenly. That is invisible rock. With 2Z's subconscious exclamation, a sudden change occurred in the field. Boom 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 boom. Call ___ resounded, accompanied by the screams from the flaming horse and the fire from one of the holes. The stone prison suddenly shook violently. Quite a while. Smoke emanated from the hole-like opening. Step _. At this moment, Gala Gala, who happened to land lightly, waved his hand, the middle bone stick. In an instant, the stone prison full of cracks and holes suddenly collapsed, showing a very good rock system. Attribute energy manipulation ability. Many people who watched the battle secretly applauded. As the stone prison collapsed and the smoke and dust gradually disappeared, the flames on the temples were like candles in the wind. Superior. It seems that he has lost the ability to fight. Scarlet Hong did not speak, and while she lowered her hat secretly, her red pupils quickly swept across the stands, and she made a slight gesture on the green and green, who were taking notes, and Alice and Xiao Huang, who were negotiating with each other. After a pause. Swipe across. Suddenly, I met a pair of blue pupils that contained a smile. By Z. Crimson didn't respond, and calmly turned her gaze back to the arena, looking at the girl on the opposite side who seemed to be struggling after taking back the flaming horse. Worthy of a fight, opponent in his eyes, but Crimson's keen fighting instinct, but from the girl's body, sense, let him, shudder, deadly a sense of crisis. Of course, the so-called, shudder, is not fear, it's just a natural stress response to a powerful enemy. And this feeling, inadvertently broke into the gate of a temple when he went to Fengyuan to find a suitable area for Gala Gala to break through. He felt it. Although he vaguely felt that the vague aura in front of him was much weaker than what he had felt before. But the same. The one who can bring him this level of shudder is by no means an ordinary elf. High-ranking, or a top-level legend. Generation protagonist, Crimson's travel experience is naturally not inferior to Ash's. Legendary elves, and even the classification of legendary elves, he also knows a lot. Moreover, he deeply doubted that when he unintentionally searched for the temple to the end, there was a guy who was the last and the most legendary. What's more, he himself is a legend. And it is because of understanding. Only Qihong knew the power of the real top and even the top legend. That is not an opponent he can defend against today. However, even the top legendary elf, to him, is nothing but a magnificent and majestic mountain, with a height of 4.3 peaks, but one day, he will climb over it. Bring it on. If so, let me experience the power of God. At this moment, along with this passionate and unyielding fighting heart, the red eyes became more and more dazzling. All of a sudden, boom, _. An aura that seemed to break through all obstacles, without being shaken, ran through his heart, will, and fetters, and emerged from the red body. That is potential of battle.